Good evening. Let's go ahead and we'll get started. I'd like to call this work session meeting of the Manitou Springs City Council for September the 9th, 2025 to order. Call the roll here. Councilor Chandler,
Present.
Councilor Fortune,
Present.
Councilor Shada, here. Councilor Weatherholt,
Present.
Councilor Wolf, Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm here.
Natalie, okay. Can you hear us okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay. And the mayor is also present. Okay, and before we get started, I call your attention to two things, and you may already know this. Mayor Pro Tem Johnson's mother or grandmother passed away last week, so she's joining us from Chicago. So we send our condolences to you and your family, Natalie.
Thank you.
And, Marcy Morrison, who was a fixture in Manitou Springs, passed away, and her funeral was yesterday. It was well attended. She had served in any number of capacities. Mayor, school board, she was Colorado State House. She was the insurance commissioner, the county commissioner. It was a wild ride, and she did a great job and was an inspiration for all of us. So we extend our condolences to the Morrison family as well and to all her friends. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. Our first discussion item tonight is the Hiawatha Gardens Phase 1, the tree inventory report and removal request. And several weeks ago, council had approved the Phase 1 work, except for the tree inventory. There were some concerns about the tree inventory, and council members were given an opportunity to inspect the trees on site. So Aaron, if you would like to walk us through this, please.
Hi, planner, project manager, Aaron Ringsred for the record. I can kind of just go through it at a high level. I divided the trees to be removed into two categories. Category 1 is those that are being removed due to the adjacent disturbance. Right now, the existing condition of the paving has that edge of paving within sometimes as little as 6 inches of some of these trees. And so there's concern with when that pavement is removed for the repaving, that we would lose some roots. The design does have the new edge of pavement pulled back, I'll say about 6 feet from the existing edge of pavement. So we're seeking to give those trees that are remaining additional buffer in the future. The trees that are scheduled for removal as part of the construction phase, or you recommended for removal, they are at risk because they're losing potential roots with that demolition. They have grown where the predominant leader is angled over the parking area in search of light because of overcrowding in that area, and or have damage on the trunk that indicates poor health of the tree. So that's the first category. And the second category is one that with the arborist's evaluation, they identified that there were opportunities to improve the health of some of the more mature trees there, because we have a lot of volunteer trees within this area. And so we are seeing some overcrowding in those trees. And by removing some of these smaller trees, it will give some of the larger trees more opportunity to thrive, develop a more mature canopy structure, reduce instances where the trees are overlapping and rubbing, causing bark removal, which opens it up to disease based on the arborist recommendation. So that's that second category of trees where it's groupings of trees that are over 6 inches, but many of the groups are 6 inches or below in the caliper inches.
Great, thank you. And of course, previously we'd seen the arborist report, which was pretty extensive. I think 41 trees or small groups of small trees, and it was pretty extensive. Yeah. So I guess at this point, council, I'll ask to see well, first off, if you have questions for Aaron, this would be a good time for it. And then I'd kind of like to see how much deliberation we want to give to this. So questions for Aaron? I guess not. So maybe if we can kind of go around the table and see what what our thoughts are on this. So I'll start down here. Julie?
My thought for myself is I want to hear from Judith Chandler because she knows so much more about trees than I do.
Okay, well, let's start down here then. Judith?
Boy, first of all, I would just like to thank you, Aaron, and thank the representative from Tall Timbers for being so available for and offering time for every single council member to walk the site and look at all those trees. And I took you up on that. And when I walked the site with you, we looked at every single tree on this map that is slated to come out. And, you know, I'm in 90% agreement with you. One thing I'm really happy about is that tree number 37 with the overhang over the pavilion will be pruned but not removed. I'm thrilled about that. That's an amazing heritage willow. There's a lot of dead wood out there and a lot of, I think, you know, your proposal will clean things up nicely. I am only going to advocate for one tree to be saved on your list to come out. And we've already had that conversation. That's tree number 2. It is the blue spruce on Old Man's Trail. If you look at your memorandum, Parab actually commented that they were concerned that both of those blue spruces were going to come out. I do agree with number 1. Unfortunately, it's just too stressed. And if you want to see what climate change will do to a blue spruce, go over and look at tree number 1 over there. It's really sad. But I'm going to make a pitch for tree number 2 because A, it's healthy. The representative from Tall Timbers did confirm that it is a healthy tree. He mentioned the power lines, but that tree has a ways to go before it's reaching power lines. So who knows what will be going on with Old Man's Trail in several years from now. And also you mentioned, construction around there, but at 7.5-inch caliper, that blue spruce has managed to stay alive, even with sidewalks and curb cuts and porta potties all around, also poor tree. So that would be the only tree that I would really seriously want you to consider not cutting down, and I concur with Parab on that. Thank you. That's all.
And Judith, just to be clear then, so you would be, as I understand, you'd be in favor of accepting the arborist report and the recommendations with the exception of tree
With the
number 2?
exception of tree number 2, the blue spruce.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Nancy?
Yeah, I walked the property yesterday with Aaron and Tall Timbers up as well. And I was very satisfied with their analysis and support their recommendations for what needs to come out, to include the tree number 2. I think that it's not that big at this point. It will hit those electric lines at some point. It doesn't look particularly good. So I don't have a problem with, I see Becky back there shaking her head, but I think that we can do a lot with repopulating our trees and making a much healthier ecosystem back there to include those 2 trees. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. Natalie?
Yes, thanks again for giving us the opportunity to walk the property. I am also excited that we're keeping tree number 37. I think that's great. And as far as number 2, I know that it's not directly impacted by this first phase of the project, so I'm fine leaving it for the moment, with the understanding that it may need to be removed at a later time. So I'm comfortable supporting Judith Chandler's request at this time. I'm not quite sure it'll make it, but we'll see what happens.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, John?
I don't have anything to add other than what Judith commented on. I'm pretty familiar with the property and the trees, so thank you.
Right. Okay. So John, just to be clear, then you would be in favor of the arborist report, except save number 2. Is that correct? Same position as Judith. Okay. All right, great. Thank you. Michelle?
Thank you. Erin, thank you so much for your hard work on this. So this last weekend, I was able to attend an indie film festival that was put on over at, Nancy, can you please help me? I'm sorry. At Ivy Wild. So a bunch of Colorado movie directors and writers, and including college students. It was very well done. So one of the films, and I can find the name of the film, in Boulder, when they do a mitigation for fire mitigation, those trees, they go away and then they're dead. And then there was concern on what happens with the dead wood. So there's a place, I believe it's called Mushroom Boulder or Boulder Mushroom. And there's this property that the soil is dead, like there's no growth or anything. So what they've done is they've taken this wood and they put it through this process and basically, Nancy, I'm sorry. So they basically help the soil grow, and then there's new growth. And then they're able to put cattle out there, and with the cattle going through the area, they can, help the soil and new plants grow. So I was wondering if you could please put in a plug to the arborist on, as these trees, as we, I hope to save tree number 2. If we could possibly do something like that, or at least do some research on that. I don't know if we have anything in the El Paso County area. So thank you.
Okay, so Michelle, then you're basically the same position as Judith. Is that okay? All right, thank you. Julie?
Okay, so is there, Erin, if we were to keep tree number 2 and it becomes, it dies or becomes really diseased or something in the future, could we deal with it later instead of, is there any thing I should consider as to a downside of keeping it for now?
It is a smaller tree, so I think the hazard associated with it, if it fell is less, and I'm saying that not as an arborist, but just as me. So the new layout of the parking lot around it does give it more buffer from adjacent hardscape than it has right now. So there is a risk of failure. We can take, reasonable measures to try to save it, but there just is a risk of failure in the future. So I want you guys to be aware of that, but we can definitely wait and see if that's the direction
So
of council.
if it fails and we take it out, later in a few years or whatever,
We'll plant
no
a new
big
tree.
deal, right?
Yeah, we'll plant a new tree in that planting
Oh,
area.
Okay. Thank you. Then I'm in favor of Judith Chandler's suggestion as well, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All righty. Okay, I think I gravitate more towards Nancy. I think the tree report that was done by Tall Timbers was good. I'd be in favor of that. I could live without tree number 2, but I think we've got 4 people at least who are in favor of that. I don't think it's worth picking bones if right now, I don't think the tree's causing us any harm. It's not an urgent matter. It could be decided later. So I think we've sat on this long enough. So I think I would lean to, I would accept it. And if we could save 2, that for now, that's okay with me. I do think it would be interesting though to hear, when we were talking about the Hiawatha Gardens in general, I think there were several voices, Judith, you were one of them, that expressed interest in having a Native American sort of a flavor with culture here. I ran into Mandy and asked him what he thinks. So if council indulges, Manny has a real brief statement about trees from a Native American's perspective. So Manny, if you could come forward and read your statement. Thanks, Erin.
Mayor, we have one statement. I just want to say thank you for every time we can save one tree. I'm so happy. But and Erin, I think there's only 2 blue spruces on that property, and one of them is coming down. So if we want tree diversity, we need to think about that too. So I just have to express my gratitude that tree number 2. And if you like unique trees and you like Dr. Seuss, it's a Dr. Seuss tree. And I think that we need to love them just as much as we do the really pretty ones.
Thank you. Manny, if you just kind of want to share your perspective. Manny, you have to press the button there in the middle and a green light will come on. Okay, and then be about 3 inches from the mic.
Okay. So there's a lot of sacred trees for us. You know, the cottonwood's definitely a sacred tree. But what I just wanted to read a little something about Sacred Tree Council here in Manitou and what we were talking about. It's a little statement we wrote. I'm sure many of you have heard of trophic cascade. You know, for those who haven't, the chain reaction that happens that when a keystone species reintroduced into an environment where it's long been missing. When the wolves were back in Yellowstone, they controlled the elk and the deer and have been overgrazing young saplings. This allowed trees to grow, beavers to build dams, and marshes to return, bringing back the fish, the bird, and the balance to the whole ecosystem healthy again. The same principle applies to plants and trees. When native trees and plants return, they restore food, medicine, and shelter for both wildlife and people. But when invasive species like Siberian elms, hackberries take over, they push out the native tree and disrupt the balance. That's why when some trees are removed, we should replace them with the native species like red willows, choke cherries, cottonwoods. By doing so, we honor the land, restore the balance, and ensure the healthy future for the community and the environment. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Manny. Appreciate your thoughts and your input on this. Well, council, I think, we've got 5 members of council wanting to save tree number 2. Nancy and I are not big fans of number 2, but I'm not going to pick bones over this. I'd like to get the project going, and 2 can stay there and be decided in the future. So if that seems to be council sentiment. Aaron, is that sufficient direction so your team can push on? Okay. Everybody okay with that? Natalie, you're okay? I see you nodding. Okay, great. Aaron, thank you very much. Manny, thank you. Okay, so the Hiawatha Gardens Phase 1, the tree inventory is complete and decided. Great, thanks. Okay, let's move on. The second item is a presentation from the Mineral Springs Foundation. Doug Edmondson.
Is this for me? Good evening, counselors, ladies and gentlemen of the audience, Mayor Graham, Mayor Pro Tem. My name is Douglas Keithley Edmondson. I am currently chair president of the Mineral Springs Foundation, and I'm here this evening just to share some perspective on the current situation of the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment's regulatory oversight that has taken place in the last 3 to 4 years with the Mineral Springs Foundation. As you all remember, we've asked.
Doug, could you give us your address just for the record?
Douglas Keithley Edmondson, 15 Keithley Road.
15, great, thank you. Okay.
Manitou Springs, Colorado.
Sorry, back to you.
Okay, thank you. As some of you remember, you have approved some pretty hefty line items for maintenance of the Mineral Springs. And I would like to justify that and let you know where your money went, and also let you know that the Mineral Springs Foundation has matched some of those funds. So let's go ahead and move forward. We have the Mineral Springs Foundation, cooperation with the City of Manitou Springs, according to our memorandum of understanding, and the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment Regulatory Oversight was triggered by the mishap of a water regulation number being put on the wrong test, and therefore we fell underneath the municipal water resource guidelines, and we started off with being told to put a do not drink order on all the springs. Of course, we fought that, and then we got right into it with them, which triggered at first the signage that you see at some of the springs. That will probably have to remain in place for the foreseeable future. Then in June of 2023, we had a sanitary survey conducted of all 8 springs, which are under the umbrella in cooperation in concert with the Mineral Springs Foundation, the City of Manitou Springs. 8 major deficiencies were found and 11 minor ones. These things were basically started with screening on certain openings, what are called duckbills or tideplex, exclusions for drains, up to major deficiencies such as Navajo Spring, Cheyenne Spring, that were open cisterns that required engineering and to be sealed. And also one of the things that we did not have was a monitoring and maintenance schedule that was acceptable for CDPHE's requirements for a municipal water system. This is the cover page of the document of our sanitary survey. You can see on the lower part of it, the 8 major deficiencies and the 11 minor deficiencies. I chose not to share all 19 pages of the document with you. It's not necessary, but we have been able to engage all of these major and minor deficiencies within a 2-year period. I'll start off with one of the major deficiencies. Shoshone Spring, as you know, was an open cistern. This is a before and after picture of it. Some of you remember the gas bell that was there that was removed. It was conserved and is on display inside of the rotunda. And what you see there in our eyes is what we call low-hanging fruit. It was basically a stainless steel cover with and I'm going to share some jargon with you, NSF 61 certified cover. That means it is certified to be in contact with with water, for drinking water, potable water. This was very inexpensive to execute. This entire mandate, this entire cover cost about $2,500 altogether. Myself and Dan Olson did all the retrofitting to this. One thing I would like to let you know that you did see a line item for close to $50,000 for Shoshone Spring. Unfortunately, when the lofts, the large lofts and condominiums were built there, a drainage system was put in place that was very insufficient, and we modified it by doing some directional boring and putting in a 4-inch drain that should last for many decades. This was one of our major compliance issues. Cheyenne Spring, we were really actually looking at possibly having to close this due to the size of the cistern. It was 96 inches across inside dimension. The old gas bell is made of copper and bronze, and we were given the green light to keep that in place. It's historic and it caused no contamination to the water, but trying to cover this was a real problem. And trying to come up with ideas that would have been cost effective, anything less than $250,000 was not foreseeable. But in all actuality, I came up with this idea. So what I did is I reached out to many manufacturers in America, couldn't find anybody. Then I found a place in Canada that would actually be willing to manufacture this cover, NSF 61 certified in 4 pieces, so it could be removed and modified. And we were able to execute this entire project for about $15,000. Our last big one was Navajo Spring. Navajo Spring, as some of you may know, is under the floor of the storage room of Patsy's Popcorn. It was part of the original rotundas that were built in the 1890s. So as you can see on the far left, the gas bell and cistern had been in place in that under the floor in that condition for 135 years. Once we got into it, we realized that the engineering and the designs that we'd came up with did not work. So we had to do a lot of field retrofitting. As fate may have it, I got a phone call from a professor at CSU. And this photograph in the center is of the professor and his students that called us right in the middle of the project, just out of the blue, asked us about the mineral springs, and came down and collected samples of bacteria and extremophiles, looking for organisms that would actually consume carbon dioxide for the potential of managing pollutants in the future. And then, of course, all of that has been documented, and here in the near future, we will be posting that science on our page. But you can see that we had to remove the gas bell. Excuse me. And here's the gas bell removed. If you are wondering what happened to it, it was those pieces were conserved, and the top of the gas bell will be placed on display, donated and placed on display at the Heritage Center. Again, that gas bell had been in place for 135 years. And when we removed it, this is what we did what we saw when we drew down the spring. It was 15 feet deep. And what you're looking at right there is the first time that people have laid eyes on the spring in its natural condition in 135 years. And as you can see, the water bubbling up and the gas escaping, so on and so forth. Navajo Spring was a very expensive project, right around $150,000. And that is because once we did all of this work to it, we encapsulated the cistern and it's F61 certified lid with all of the mechanical passthroughs, access panels, so on and so forth. One of the other problems we had was that because of how enclosed it would accumulate carbon dioxide gas to the point where it was extremely dangerous. You would put a monitor in it and basically there would be no oxygen within a foot, 18 inches of putting the monitor in. So in the center one, you can see the venting we installed. So it has constant fresh air circulating into the chamber. And then we put an access in the exterior of the building. So before you had to go in and open up the floor, and basically it was a 10-foot drop straight down into an unventilated space. It was extremely dangerous and very unhealthy for the people who were working there because the carbon dioxide gas would accumulate in the storage room. Maintenance, monitoring, and testing. One of the things that we got dinged with during our deficiencies was we didn't have this. This is our binder for 2025 alone. And I'm going to go ahead and open this and read to you. The Colorado Department of Public Health puts this under, this is our monitoring and operational guidance handbook for the Colorado Public Water System utilized hand pump wells, which do not provide continuous disinfection. So that is, if you look this up on CDPHE municipal water source, that is what we fall under. And therefore we have to adhere to those guidelines. Now, we've gone through a couple of public works managers over the last few years, but during that entire time, a gentleman who is our ORC of record, Dan Olson, has been working on this from beginning to end. He's the one that does the monitoring. He's helped us do all this work, help us put it together. He, Sean Dearborn, and some of the folks that have come before us, I can't sing their praises enough, but he does an excellent job of this. Every single test is recorded. Every year we do nitrates is recorded. And now we have a handbook that helps us monitor and maintain the mineral springs, which we did not have before. Just to let you know what happens to a community that doesn't take care of its mineral springs. Mayor John Graham may know, and so does Denise Howell, that earlier this year I was asked by a community called Excelsior Springs in Missouri. The Missouri Department of Natural Resources advised them that if they wanted to do something with their mineral springs, that they ask us. That was CDPHE to send us that way. So after a few phone calls, I was asked to visit Excelsior Springs, Missouri, and try to retrofit and bring some of their mineral springs back online. When I went to Excelsior Springs, I found this beautiful Art Deco building, much like our spa building, but a little bit later. At one time, their big water bar had 7 springs serving water at that. They have preserved this building, but it's basically abandoned. And so is their entire downtown area. So by the late 1980s, early 1990s, they closed all but 1 spring. And by 1993, all of their springs were gone. And this is the condition of their springs. And I was asked to retrofit Lithia number 1, which looks much like Shoshone Spring and Cheyenne Spring. And after my visit, unfortunately, their city administrator and their ORC of record were unwilling to engage the project. I did talk to this group that's much like the Mineral Springs Foundation. Apparently my visit there rattled the cage a little bit. And so they are pushing forward with trying to retro some of their springs, but I wanted just to show you guys that because we are so fortunate that in 1987, the Mineral Springs Foundation was formed and we have preserved our springs. And thank you to the city of Manitou Springs and our memorandum of understanding to maintain and keep these springs flowing in the namesake of our community. I will be of service to this community as long as I'm able. And we'll continue to ask your help, but hopefully we're on the other side of what has been a major obstacle for the Mineral Springs and the health of our community. Are there any questions?
Council, Julie?
Oh, thank you so much, Doug. So is there a specific schedule that our city staff should be following in terms of the monitoring and maintaining?
Yeah,
going
absolutely.
forward?
So we test every month for what's called back Ts and total and TDS, which are suspended in the waters. The municipal water source up at the water plant, they test, am I correct, Ben, on a daily basis? Okay, Ben Schmidt, our engineer in the audience, thank you very much. We are mandated to test once a month. When we first started doing this, they were making us test every week. But since we have proven, one of the things we had to prove was called a GWIDI or groundwater under direct influence. Some of the engineers from Denver thought that they were pretty smart and decided that water flowed uphill. So we had to prove that the spring water coming out of the ground was not being influenced by the creek or any other groundwater source.
So is that monthly monitoring done by the Mineral Springs Foundation or the city staff?
It's done by the city of Manitou Springs because it has to be done by a certified water operator since it's considered a transient municipal source.
I see. Thank you. I have no other questions.
Certainly.
Thank you. Other question, Judith?
Wow, I just loved going through this presentation in the packet. I'm so impressed with how you pulled off Cheyenne Springs, and I don't know how you found a company in Canada and put that together in 4 parts, but kudos. My only question is, you mentioned the signage, that it will most likely need to stay in place for the foreseeable future.
Yes. So
Can you expand on that?
So we have to put signage, we have to display signage at the springs, at the fonts that say it's a non-chlorinated water source. That's pretty consistent throughout all natural water sources throughout the state. The manganese signs, the only way that we would be able to remove those is if the EPA changed its position. It deals with the federal Clean Water Act. Is what that one does.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Denise?
Yeah, just a couple of quick things is Doug was truly amazing through this process and the entire Mineral Springs Foundation. We also have to clean them quarterly with go and clean each spring quarterly and get them cleaned off from who does it? I can't
So we
remember.
have a contract with Master Blaster, and that is, so part of the water district ask we get every year is the cleaning of the fonts by Master Blaster on a quarterly basis, but we are also using some of that money for the U.S. Geological Survey monitoring that basically monitors the health, the flow, contents, levels of the springs through test wells and direct testing of the springs themselves.
And this partnership is vital because if this was to fall under the city, we would have had to close the Mineral Springs. But because it falls under the Mineral Springs Foundation, that is a different entity. So we did not have to close and they were able to manage it. We just offer the ORC to make sure that we stay in compliance with all the state regulations.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Nancy, please.
Yeah, great job, Doug. Thank you. Just to clarify, were all 8 of the major and 11 of the minor deficiencies corrected then?
Yes, we have nothing out there right
Great.
now. We had to ask for extension after extension because of the scope of work on some of these. As far as the dome, I just burned up the phone. I called, a half a dozen manufacturers and finally just found one that was responsive. All of them got cold feet as soon as I said NSF 61 certified. I don't know why, because any sort of water tank that's manufactured anywhere in this country has to have that. But this place in Canada they were really good about it. But yeah, no, this is very, very important. I don't know how I can drive that home. Having this monitoring plan. One of the things that I can say is when this first started happening, I was very reluctant to do a lot of this. I felt it was a lot of government oversight that was unnecessary. But now that we're on the other side of this, all it does is ensure that we can deliver safe, clean spring water to the public for the future, for generations to come.
And thank you for including those slides from Missouri, because that is shocking to see that stunning building
I just can't begin to tell you how sad it was.
and
They have a downtown much like ours that, empty storefronts, and I was literally there at their little mercantile where people were saying, so where are the springs?
and it just makes it clear as it's always been, but it just
Mhm.
drives the point home how important the springs are to Manitou Springs. So thank you for you, and thanks back to the Mineral Springs Foundation, to all the members. Thanks.
Well, you're welcome. And just to let you know what it means to the economy of our community, last month in August, we distributed 885 collapsible cups at the Chamber of Commerce. And those are people who specifically came in for the collapsible cups and the maps.
Thank
Very
you.
good.
Doug, couple questions,
Mhm.
couple things here. Well, first comment, having done all this due diligence, it would seem like a good idea, and maybe you've already done this on the foundation's website, to put some, it could be a short piece, just informative that we've done our due diligence, the water safe to drink. If that-
I have learned through this that you want to let a sleeping dog lie when it comes to touting the safety of a water when it's not in question. If somebody asks me if the water is safe, I'm going to say that. But as far as putting it on our webpage and saying it's safe, I kind of let the science speak for itself. I don't want there to be a question with that. When I was part of this group when COVID hit, and people were like, "Oh, you need to put a sign on the spring and say it's okay from COVID." It's like, absolutely not. I don't want to
Okay,
raise
well-
alarms in that. It can be a very touchy, it can be a very slippery slope doing that sort of thing.
Okay, I see your point there, and so I'll
Yeah.
withdraw that suggestion.
I appreciate that, though.
Well, yeah, so question, so we had something like 19 discrepancies that got fixed.
Mhm.
Do you know how many discrepancies Colorado Springs had on its mineral springs?
None, because they don't have any.
Good point.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're only spring down Tatanka, whatever spring it's called, Tacoma Spring, whatever it is. This downtown is so laced with arsenic, they'll never be able to offer it to the public.
Okay. This is false advertising for them to use springs.
It
with their
is.
last
They got a
name.
lot of nerve.
Okay. Well, great. Doug, thanks a lot for the work you and your group have done. We appreciate it very
You're
much.
welcome. Yeah,
Sure.
I'm glad to be of service to my community.
Great, thanks. Okay, let's move on to our third discussion topic tonight is the preliminary plan for the Creek Walk Phase 6. And Ben Schmidt, our engineer, is going to start us off.
Good evening, Council. I'm Ben Schmidt, the Director of Public Services / City Engineer, and want to introduce two key players that will be also answering some questions for tonight that have got this project to where it is right now. And that's Karen Rowe, who's been working with the city and coordinating with PPRTA and CDOT for this funding, and then Glenn Ellis with JR Engineering, who's brought these plans to their current state right now. All right, so just to introduce this project and kind of talk about holistically what the purpose of this project is, it's to connect the final stage of the trail system, basically from the roundabout all the way up to Rainbow Falls. And the goal is to create a safe pedestrian access for bikes, peds, basically anybody using that system rather than having to walk on the roadway. So the idea would be to construct a 6-foot wide to 10-foot wide trail between these 2 points. And the preliminary design started in about 2023 up to this point. And what we're looking at right now is we're roughly at about 30% design, and we want to take this to 100% design. And that sets us up for it sets us up strategically for funding if we can get a project that is shovel ready and we can show that we're making progress towards design for the potentially limited funding that we might be dealing with in the future. And it also just highlights that we are taking these funds that we have been allocated and moving them forward. So the CDOT funding is available for final design to be complete in 2026. And we're looking for additional construction funding in about 2027 for this project. So what my big ask from you tonight is I'm going to present a couple options for the trail. We can talk about some of the minutia of this trail design. And what I need your help with is finding that path forward of the three options that I'm presenting. So just to give a little bit of context, here's some of the existing conditions, and I'll just highlight a couple of key components of the existing trail. So first off, if you look to the south side of Serpentine Drive, this is facing west, headed up towards Woodland Park along Highway 24 direction. You'll see that there's this existing wall here that abuts very closely to the edge of asphalt. The roadway width is pretty narrow. And then if you look on to the right side of the photo, you'll see the existing social trail that is already kind of meanders along the creek bed there. Here's another photo showing some of the limited right-of-way and no parking limitations where we've got a very tight corridor to work with. You'll still see the trail out on the right, narrow corridor, and the wall on the south side. And then another key point of this discussion is the crossing near the kind of unofficial parking / turnaround there by the creek crossing and the bridge. This is a key pedestrian safety zone that needs to be addressed as part of these plans. And then if you look far off in the distance, you can see the hairpin turn up by Rainbow Falls. So if we're driving over Fountain Creek, we're looking to see the entrance to Rainbow Falls up ahead and the hairpin turn a little bit further. But two key points that I want to highlight in this existing photo is on the left side of the photo, there's a relatively steep drop off down the hill. And on the right side of the photo, we have a little bit more space to work with, but there will need to be some sort of retaining wall or structure in order to make this trail work. And then the infamous hairpin turn along Serpentine Drive. And this is also another key pedestrian crossing component that we need to make sure is safe, both for sight lines for vehicles and advance warning for pedestrians getting across there. So this is a key area of discussion for tonight's presentation. So I'll first present kind of the three options in text form, and then we'll look at some maps. So the first option is to keep the trail along the north side of the entire length of Serpentine Drive and take the crossing at the hairpin turn, basically from the north side of the road. So if we kind of look back at the roadway, this is where the crossing would be. And I know folks online can't really see that, but I'm pointing on the corner, that right corner of the hairpin turn. And these estimated costs, and granted, this is 2025, and I did highlight that in 2027, 2028 is when we're going to be looking for funding. So there has to be some sort of inflationary factor added into that. But in 2025 costs between the estimated retainage that we're going to, retainage is in retainage wall, not retainage funding, at the utility relocations and some of the pedestrian improvements that are in there, that's right around 1.5 million. As you move down to option 2, the path begins on the north side to still remain continuous with the path along the roundabout, and that would run along the north side of the road and then cross perpendicular at the existing crossing. That was that photo that I showed earlier where there's kind of the unofficial turnaround. That would be where the crossing would be, and then would move to the south side and head towards Rainbow Falls in that direction. That's around 1.3 million. And then option 3 begins on the north side, but goes over that bridge instead of making that crossing and crosses diagonally south across the road.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Does that 1.35 million include the retaining wall, or is that a separate cost?
That includes retaining wall. It also includes estimated construction management as part of this. And I'm happy to break down where we can find opportunities for savings and where we might have some unknowns. Granted, we're at, once again, about 30% design. So a lot of these details will be refined as we move to 100%, but that's a great question. So to put all that text into visual format, we have basically option 1. So you can see on the right side of the screen, the connection to the existing trail above the roundabout. And the things I really wanted to highlight here were the trail in red that we're moving along, the proposed crossing, and the narrowed trail corridors. Because the issue that we have with a very limited right of way is we are bound by the creek on the north side, which we can't fundamentally change the flow rate or the flow of the creek and create a rise situation by doing any work there. So we're kind of bound by that on the north side. And then on the south side of the road, any additional push that we go further south will impact that retaining wall. So even if it's a foot or two, we might have to end up redoing that entire retaining wall, which, as you saw, is pretty big and can be very expensive. So that's really the primary driver between a lot of these constrictions. Option 2 still shows those same constrictions because we're still bound by the same things, but shows the crossing near that dirt area right here, so pedestrians can get across and go along the south side of the road. A key thing to highlight here is that big drop off here would probably require some additional retaining. However, the benefit for the pedestrian crossing is they're already on the side of the road that they need to be by the time you get to the hairpin curve. Whereas on this side, we have more flexibility and less, a little bit less cost, but there's a lot more investment in this pedestrian crossing here at this hairpin turn. So the third option, same constraints with right of way, but the difference is that instead of crossing right across here, we would go across that bridge before there and then cross diagonally along here. But you have a little bit more flexibility with some site triangles, but still the same constraints with the retaining on the south side of the road. And I'll just pause here to see if there's any other questions while we're kind of looking at this visually.
Okay. So John?
So why is 2 and 3, why is this one a little bit cheaper with this diagonal crossing? Why is that?
It has more to do, and Glenn maybe can jump into the technical minutia of the bridge detail and the crossing here, but there's improvements that would need to be made.
Good evening, Glenn Ellis with JR Engineering. Excuse me, I'm fighting a cold, so bear with me, please.
Glenn, if you can be about 3 inches
Yeah.
from the mic,
Oh,
that'd help.
Can you go back to option 2? I just want to look at those costs. I mean, both of those options would require a retaining wall. I believe for option 3, with its reduced cost, it's because the retaining wall wouldn't be as extensive going east towards the bridge. We reduced the length of it. I mean, there's a lot of detail that would have to get into that. So these are like high level costs that we're looking at. But that's the thought process there.
Okay, Julie, please.
Why don't we need, I don't really understand why the retaining wall is unnecessary in option 1.
I'm going to go back to the existing condition really quick.
If you can give me a really simple explanation too, because I'm not really good with all the technical stuff.
Yeah, of course. And the best way I think I can show this is through just this visual option. So if you can see the trails on the north side of the road right here. So we have a little bit more flexibility for, we still have to do retaining. If you can imagine the trail is being built along this side of the road, we still have to do a relatively long section of retaining wall along this whole portion here. But where the challenge becomes is this corner right here. That's where a lot of the expense resides, because you have to create a safe crossing that's ADA compliant, meaning nice flat accessibility, and make sure all the sight triangles are correct to protect people at this critical corner. And this hairpin is particularly challenging because if you're driving down there, it's tough to see pedestrians. So you have to put a lot of effort into making that crossing compatible with both vehicles and peds. And so while you get a little bit of benefit on this side of the road by bringing the trail here with a little bit less retaining wall, you still have to fix this crossing right here, which is the expense.
Right. I mean, I'm no engineer, but it just seems to me the way people fly down that hill in their cars, it seems like that would be option one is not only the most expensive, but probably the most likely for pedestrians to get hit by a car. Do you agree? Am I seeing that correctly?
Yeah, you make an excellent point. In order to make it anecdotally right when you're driving down, you understand this completely, that when you see somebody that's immediately in the intersection and they're not protected on the south side of the road, that's a challenging thing for anybody to accommodate quickly and make that decision to protect the pedestrian. So that's a big reason why that's the most expensive option right there. And your point is well taken.
And the most dangerous, yeah. Thank you.
Did someone else have their hand raised? Question. Judith, please.
Do these costs address any structural issues that might be going on with the bridge itself? Are there any issues with the bridge itself? I had heard several years ago that there were some problems with the integrity of the bridge. So does this address that in any way? Are there safety issues that you know of? And if so,
Do you want to speak to the bridge design discussions in the past?
Well, we weren't involved with the bridge itself, so I don't know what type of improvements would be needed. Our expectation would be that the crossing, the sidewalk would be able to function with the bridge in its condition today, with some consideration, I believe, that the city has had that evaluated, and we'd want to make sure that there's no confliction there.
Yeah, Denise, can you
We
follow
can
on?
take that. The bridge is stable. It's the sidewalls. And we were planning to fix that in this year, except Lover's Lane occurred. And so 2026 will depend on how much PPRTA money we need to work to get Lover's Lane completely corrected. So, but it's the sidewalls and the bridge that we need to repair. The bridge is safe.
okay, thank you. And then also, my concern with option one, the cost notwithstanding is, is the safety issue number one. But when you have places where you've seen in other towns where they've done something like this, what they end up doing is they put up flashing lights and big signs and, this starts to go on and I really don't want that to be part of our pristine creek walk. I want to avoid that as much as possible. So yeah, option one scares me.
Nancy, please.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering why option one was even included in this. Was the contract just said we need 3 options, or is there a benefit to option one?
Yeah, it's trying to utilize as much footprint that's existing out there, and that north side of the roadway allows that. But yeah, it does have that trade-off of crossing there in the middle of that turn. But that's why it was looked at as, hey, we didn't want to ignore it, wanted to present it as if that was something that you guys thought was acceptable, we could go down that path, but we didn't want to just ignore it.
Okay. Second question is undergrounding. Will, on the north side, will the will undergrounding of wires be incorporated into this design?
Yeah, so I've spoken with Excel Energy. They have indicated they can,
Utilities.
oh, sorry. I have, they can underground from along the east side where they've already undergrounded all the way up to the bridge. They've indicated that they wouldn't want to underground beyond that because of the cost to get under the creek. Would just be too expensive. So they'd be okay with, they would leave a pole on the east side of the bridge and then leave it overhead to the corner there.
So that would be another reason to do option 2 or 3, I would think, potentially.
Yeah, and trying to think. The trail would get close to those poles, but I don't believe that they impacted them enough that they had a concern. I'd have to double check that. But yeah, the rest of the project, any of the options, they would be able to underground from the bridge to the east.
Okay. In option 2 or 3, is there any difference in those with the constraining it to 6 feet? Because that really concerns me. We had that unfortunately in the whatever it was, the WAP, I guess, and it did get constrained, and that kind of defeats the purpose of having a multi utilized trail to start constraining it in certain points. So
Yeah, and it's an excellent concern. I think the big constraining point of there is when we go back to the existing conditions where the trail would be constrained. When we're looking at this portion right here, this almost abuts this wall. And so in order to install it, this is the creek right here that we can't impact, but in order to shift it enough to get that 10-foot wide trail, because the creek is really the binding factor there, we would definitely impact this wall.
So is 2 or 3, option 2 or 3 make a difference in terms of constraint?
It doesn't, unfortunately, that we're still bound by those constraints on all 3 options.
Okay. And are there any other pros or cons between option 2 and 3? They seem very similar to me.
They are very similar. The main benefit
There's
here.
a cost difference and an angle versus straight across. So
Yeah, so once again, we're still at 30% design, but once we decide which side of the road we want this project to be on, it really opens up the door to be able to engineer solutions that align with the trail. And what I mean by that is if we look at this picture here, so the option 2 would have the crossing basically going across where this existing unsigned crossing label is, and then cross on the south side. Once we have that determined that we're crossing at this particular point, this road can potentially be adjusted to create what's called a chicane in the roadway to help slow people down a little bit and provide a little bit more flexibility and pedestrian buffer on the south side of the road. However, if we go with option 3, we're going across the bridge on the north side of the road and then crossing over here, which doesn't allow for as much of a traffic calming chicane. So it's like a series of dominoes in the design to say, if we're staying on one side, then we have this flexibility to adjust the roadway. But if we're staying on the north side, then we don't have as much flexibility. So another key question this brings up is, do we want some additional traffic calming with this roadway between Rainbow Falls and the bridge along the hairpin turn to help slow people down a little bit more? However, it creates challenges for larger vehicles coming down and making that turning radius there.
how many large vehicles actually use serpentine? I mean, they have options to not use that. So
Yeah, they're not really supposed to, and we would include a bunch more signage in this project to try to deter them from doing this, because that hairpin is the critical thing that hangs them up, and they don't know until they get to that point that they can't turn around there. So things like signage and chicane would be included to deter them from doing that. We can't control every single vehicle that goes down there, but as you all know, this happens every summer.
So just to clarify, option 2 is when we can in fact use the
Chicane.
Biscayne, thank
Yeah.
you. I didn't want to get that wrong. So,
Yeah, and what that really looks like, if we can visualize this a little bit, is that the trail would be on the south side of the road here because we've decided that we're crossing near the dirt parking lot. But what the radius of the curvature of the road would be, it'd be slightly adjusted to go back out towards this hillside and provide a little bit more buffer space and potentially a little bit less cost in wall retainage because you're shifting the road to the north side and creating a little bit more pathway there.
and are those costs included in the trail design as well, or is that be an additional cost to do that?
In those numbers that I presented to you, and once again, this is a 30% stage, that was all factored into that because we're not really affecting the existing footprint of the roadway. We're just shifting the road alignment, but we need to know before we do all the engineering work for all the vertical curvature and the drainage and everything, which option we're going to just to come back and redesign that would be a challenge. And so that's why this is kind of a critical point in deciding that.
Okay. So my sense is that option 2 seems to have the most pros and the fewest cons, other than costing more than the option 3. So I guess that would be my preference, would be option 2 at this point.
Okay, thank you. John, did you have comments?
Well, as somebody who walks this about 2-3 times a week, I would say option 2 is the best thing. I'm a little bit leery also about just the pedestrian safety of kind of a diagonal crossing there. That just seems a little confusing and whatnot to have cyclists and pedestrians and whatnot crossing a corridor in which there's traffic coming at that kind of an angle, okay, as opposed to a perpendicular angle where you're much more aware of having to really actively manage both directions. I think the other thing that if we want to retain some of that parking that is up there, I think that crossing also is good for that parking as well for people accessing the creek. Otherwise, I think they're just going to informally cross there and make their own crossing regardless of what signage or barriers or whatever we put up. So it seems like if we're going to retain that informal parking there on the left side, this side of the bridge, then that current crosswalk, I think, is a pretty good place. And I like your idea of trying to do some traffic calming because let me tell you, it's signed 20 miles an hour. There's no way that enforcement is happening up there or that is what's occurring up there. I would say the speeds are easily 40 miles an hour until you basically get to that hairpin curve. And then if you're not really slowed down, you're through the fence. Thank you.
Well, and you make an excellent point about parking there because it's logical if you are able to get into one of those parking spaces and park there to link directly into a path that's on the south side of the road. That's an easier transition for pedestrians getting out of their vehicles to go there. So thank you for making that point. That's great.
Thank you. Other comments at this point? Judith?
This is what I love about Seven Heads, looking at the same thing. Because when I was looking at this at home, I was really leaning toward option 3. But there's been some really good points made. I have one question, and this is an engineer 101 question. On option 2, where the cross would be, where you're crossing, is that an area where it's really bottlenecked, where it's going to be, like narrower, like 6 feet, versus option 3, where it's after does that have any bearing on the safety of, like where it's narrower, where I see a lot of people that are going to be on this crosswalk, is that going to really bottleneck that up, or is that really not an issue?
Well, you make an excellent point there. So typically when you have places where you're slowing down to look and cross as a pedestrian, where there's areas where it's slowed down, everybody's stopped, there's kind of a natural constriction to to wait at that intersection, that actually, I can see that providing a lot of benefits for people, especially cyclists coming down. You know, if you're moving through and you're anticipating just being able to go across the intersection without having to slow down, sometimes you can get a little complacent as a cyclist moving across there. Whereas if you come to a constricted area, which this next slide kind of details the preliminary plans that show that. So the area I believe you're speaking about is right here before the pedestrian crossing. So as you can see, this goes from 10-foot wide and constricts down to 6, but this is a natural, not only, you know, traffic calming works both ways for both bikes and vehicles. And so there's a natural traffic calming location here for bikes to slow down before they make the crossing. It's a natural congregation for peds to slow down before they make the crossing. So you make a great point, but the benefit of the constriction here is that it slows everybody down so they can pause. You have a good flat area where you can set up all your ADA crossing. To Councilman Washeda's point, you've got really good sight lines at that bridge. And so it would allow for, I think, a safer crossing and transition there.
Thank you. That really cements my change to option 2, because it sounds like that for several reasons, that's the safest while possibly preserving more parking for us.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm an option 2 also.
John.
So let's talk a little bit about the funding and whatnot.
Well,
Okay,
okay.
let's assume that it's,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry, John. I think they still have a couple slides you want to go through. Do you guys want to do that? Because some of that does impact the budget.
Well,
You
no,
may
this
have
does
to-
impact what I'm going to go into. I would like to know, given our funding profile, given the fact that this is the tail end of the creek path, okay? If we were to calm down some of this concrete width, okay, which you're already talking about doing it at this point here, but doing it way further back, okay? How does that affect possibly the cost profile of this?
That's a really good question. So what I'm hearing you asking is if we reduced to 6 foot the entire length of the trail, what would that cost
Or
impact be? For the overall
80% of it
budget?
or something like that, okay?
Yeah, so this is kind of a good philosophical question that maybe Karen can help me with a little bit, but because a lot of these funding sources are geared towards multimodal funds, you want to preserve the basically general integrity of the fund to say that we want as wide an accessible multimodal path as we can possibly have. So while it might result in a reduction of the overall project costs, which might make us more competitive, to just put in only a 6-foot sidewalk instead of a 10-foot sidewalk might make us less competitive when we're looking for these funds because we're only replacing a small section there. So
Well, I guess I'm not married to 6. I'm trying to say, I mean, we've had these discussions before where 10 is not written in stone anywhere. Okay. So I'm just asking, or if it was variable in terms of depending upon essentially things that might impact points of retaining walls and whatnot that are further on there. Okay. The wider you're having to do a retaining wall in the creek, the more engineering and stuff like that, to me, it seems like to me you have to do. And it doesn't seem out of sort for this area that it has to be completely monolithic at a certain width. Okay. There's not that much traffic that's up there to begin with. And actually, to a certain extent, maybe possibly changing the width of it and being a little more dynamic and a little more sensitive to kind of the topology and what we have going on up there environmentally. Seems like to me, there's also some just aesthetic things that start to fall into place and make it look a little bit better. Okay. As well as, you know, one of the things that is happening on the current really wide, 10-foot wide creek path through town is now that gives people, because we tend to kind of pour these things in big, long linear swaths, this idea that you can really just roll and move. And I don't think that's a behavior that we want to encourage. So that's why I'm asking, you know, would this asking for less money, okay, less width in certain areas and whatnot, get us to the end point faster, cheaper, and a better looking project. That's all I'm just asking.
Yeah, and you do make an excellent point, because I do think there are cost savings in reduction of that retaining wall width. We kind of natural traffic calming for pedestrians and bikes as well. It would kind of adhere to the feel of what's already existing in there. And when you're asking for less funding on a project, you're more competitive typically, especially if it's already designed. So I think that's an excellent point for cost savings. What I'm hearing from the council so far, and please feel free to jump in for additional discussion, is we're looking at option 2 for the trail alignment, that seems to be the consensus for the trail alignment. What this gives us now that we know what the trail alignment is now we can start to tinker with all these little details to say, how can we reduce the width here? How can we reduce the retaining wall scope here to get the minimum that we need to make the project cost as little as possible so we can be the most competitive? And I think there's probably an opportunity in design to look at the 2 options with, say, a standard 10-foot trail width and a standard say 6-foot trail width to see if there's a substantial cost savings there. But now that we are kind of leaning towards a direction that we want to go for alignment, that really helps us start to pin down those costs without a lot of additional re-engineering.
Ben, I guess I'd like you to finish your presentation, and then council will have a discussion on the options. We'll continue that discussion. But I think we should hear the rest of what you wanted to present to us. So please do so.
Thank you, Mayor. So this slide just basically goes through those constrictions that we had talked about. And this slide is probably the most important to council because it goes through the project budget. So a few things I want to highlight here. So if we're looking at the overall project cost in the pie chart, so the existing budget we have right now to get to this particular point, the JR is contracted for, is this small slice of the pie. It's roughly around $100,000. This is getting us to the 30%, it's called FIR stage in CDOT terms. There's basically 30, 60, 90, 100. But the ask is that to get, now that we know a direction, we need to supplement the contract, this additional amount, this portion of the pie here, for about $240,000 to get to the final plans, specs, and estimate stage. What is currently, and then to look at the overall project cost, this construction estimate, and I put in the most expensive option just to show, but this would obviously be reduced now that we're looking at option 2 down to about 1.3 million. But this is the overall project cost, and I just wanted to show that visually. What we currently have STIP is $534,250. That's basically what is already allocated to this project from our partner sources. And Manitou's contribution of that 534 is 107,000. And so the idea would be is that we would take, because right now we've done 100, we would take the additional 240 out of this 534, which would only leave us a couple $100,000 for the construction. So that's where this big shortfall is that we need to go look for additional funding.
And I want to mention there's lots of ways to look for this. So I'm not, I don't think that I think there's chances to get it through our TAC, through other ways. So we just now that we know this, we'll get it in design, and then Ben will start attending those meetings and start asking for that funding and start getting in the pipeline for it. So I don't want this to be like, oh, we don't have it, because I think we will get some and we'll continue to work on this, but we won't even be doing this until the last 2026, 2027. We've got to first get the design done and then start looking for all the funding.
But the good thing is if I can narrow down those costs, I know what to ask for exactly. And that's a huge benefit. Instead of just having this rough idea of what a project is, if you can ask for a specific amount based on plans that are already in the works, that's far more competitive. And so to speak to the point Denise brought up about the funding options that we have. So there's MMOF fundings, or these transportation alternative funds, the TAP funds in future years. That's what Creek Walk 4 is being funded by right now. The PPRTA 3 capital program is one of just 3 capital programs. So we can continue to put 20% of the funding into this over the next 10 years towards Serpentine, is basically kind of like a savings account towards the project. We could fund it that way. There's future open space funding, and then there's also other opportunities for through GOCO grants and things like that, these are all funding sources the city's very familiar with and that we pursue. It's just helpful to have, the exact target that we're looking for and how we can keep going after these things. So some of the big budget assumptions that the utilities would be underground, to your point earlier, we can find out where exactly those impacts would be, because there's potential cost savings there if we can keep the trail outside of that. If for some reason that was the big linchpin that was driving the project in one direction or the other, we could design a way to not have them undergrounded. And then some trees would need to be removed. But as always, with any city project, we always look very carefully at what needs to be removed before that's done. Serpentine Road would need to be narrowed, and the construction oversight would be included in the estimates. But this is something that we can look at in future years now that we've got some excellent hires in the city to potentially do some of this construction oversight as well. So that could be deducted out of it. And then the budget impacts that would be defined as we move from this 30% up to the 100% would be the environmental clearances and impacts, because anytime we have this federal funding, we have to make sure that all these environmental clearances are done right away as part of that clearance. And we would really need to look carefully at the right-of-way, any right-of-way acquisition that we'd have to do around the roundabout connecting the existing trail to this current trail system. And so it's just always one of those things, even if it's a tiny sliver, we need to make sure it goes through the clearance. So that's just one of the things I wanted to put on the slide, as well as the reduced width from 10 feet, which we've discussed. So what I'm asking for help with tonight is what option is preferred.
Great. Thank you, Ben. Glenn. Council, I think we can go ahead and ask some more questions. We've asked some questions already. We had a little more information, so I think it's fair to continue the dialogue here. We've had several people, members of council, have expressed support for option 2. So I guess let's ask our questions. Then I'll go around the table and ask what you're gravitating to, and we'll see if we can maybe come up with some direction for staff. So do you have any additional questions for Ben or for Glenn? I guess not. Let's go around there. Julie,
I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
please.
And I don't know if this is premature. I'm certainly in favor of option 2 for a lot of the reasons that have been expressed. But I'm also in favor of reducing the 10-foot sidewalk, because I find that to be dangerous. Just the way that when we narrow the road, the cars have to go slower. Since we've got these huge sidewalks now, those bikes and other, mobility things besides bikes, they like fly by there. And when you're pushing a baby carriage or walking a dog, it's scary. And so I think if we had a smaller sidewalk, or it's not a sidewalk, but a smaller cement creek walk area, then we wouldn't have as much speed for the bikes and things flying through, because they realize somebody has to move over and someone has the right of way. I just think it would produce a slower speed and a safer experience and a much more pleasant experience, because it's terrifying when you're walking along and all of a sudden you've got some bike coming at you at it feels like at 30 miles an hour, or some of those, especially the electric vehicles. So I'm very much in favor of keeping the creek walk more narrow than the 10-foot for those reasons.
Okay, thank you. Any additional comments before we go around the table? Okay,
Oh,
sorry,
Mayor.
did you have something you wanted to add, Ben?
Yeah, the only other thing I would like to just highlight with that as well is because of the narrowed road section, there isn't really an opportunity to add additional bike lanes in the future. And so just one other point of consideration as we kind of talk through these things is while we may be able to narrow the Creek Walk section to slow down cyclists, I'm just always thinking of what it's like, you know, for a family with a bike and a trailer trying to go up to Rainbow Falls to go look. If there's not enough room on the road and they don't feel safe pedaling uphill on the road, their only other option is the trail. And so it does limit them to be able to go up there, but it's just a point of consideration. And I certainly understand your point, but it's just, we wouldn't ever really have the option to stripe bike lanes in the future because of how narrow the roadway is.
Okay, thank you. In that case, let's go ahead and continue and see if we can gravitate towards options. No, Michelle. Judith, did you have a comment?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question about considering any narrowing for long stretches on this project would impact the funding sources. It seems like it might. Is that a potential to?
It's tough to predict exactly how they're going to review this, but what I've seen in the past when I've asked for these funds is when you can say that you're providing a larger, wider trail that accommodates an off-network bike path and an off-network ped path rather than just being adjacent to the roadway. I've had success personally with that being looked at more favorably. It's not to say that when we're asking for these, that wouldn't be that wouldn't be the case in the future, but yeah, that's always been one of my key arguments is that we're providing a safe, completely separate system for bikes and peds.
Thank you.
Okay. Any end of question? Oh, sorry, Natalie, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry, John. Okay. Yeah, I'm in favor of number 2. And thank you for all the great questions. All my questions were answered throughout this process. I just had a quick question. Do we intend on ever extending this trail to reach the Overlook Park? Or I can't remember the Creek Walk Master Plan, if that ended at Rainbow Falls?
It's currently not in the STIP monies for this project, so we'd have to go back out and ask for these funds, but it's certainly something to consider in future years. The big expense in that critical link there is that there's a substantial amount of retaining wall work that would have to be done adjacent to the highway that really makes that particular link an expensive proposition. And so I think that's why this was asked for in this particular piece in the past, is because it's less expensive than all the retaining wall work that would have to go into creating any sort of bike or ped path adjacent to the narrow road on that portion of Serpentine Drive.
Okay,
But
good.
it's
Yeah, I
certainly
mean, this is a big win. So I was just curious about an additional phase in the future. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank
great
you,
question.
Thank you, Natalie. Michelle?
My preference is option 2.
Okay, John, I think you already said 2. Nancy?
Yes, option 2, and I remain an advocate for the 10-foot trail for any number of reasons. My experience is funding is easier to get. It's absolutely a best practice to have a 10-foot trail. It'll probably be more out and back there during certain times, so it'll be safer. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that in as well. But yes, option 2, thank you.
Yeah, I also lean towards option 2. Julie, your point about the fast bicycles, I've had that concern down by the swimming pool on the existing trail. And it seems like now that so many people are riding electric bikes, they aren't sensitive to speed limits. I know it's places like Breckenridge, I think you're allowed certain classes of electric bikes to have on trails and others you're not. So that may be one, some other little twist that we need to consider for all of Manitou. But I think your point is good. I would probably be inclined to do the 10-foot width where possible, realizing that some constrictions are natural. But I think your point is good there. So it appears that council's, it's a pretty unanimous position here. So option 2. And
Excellent.
guess-
Yeah,
okay.
thank you very much for your time and for all the collaborative conversation. I really appreciate that. It helps me understand the goals as we work through the details.
Great, thank you.
Mayor, could we
Yes.
just take a moment to introduce Felipe? Could you
Yes.
introduce Felipe?
Yeah, please.
Yes, absolutely. I gave you a little primer as to the excellent staff that we just hired, but if it's all right, I would like to introduce Felipe Lopez. He's the new project manager for the city.
Oh, hi. Okay. Great. Well, welcome aboard. Great.
Yeah, he brings excellent experience and already in the couple weeks he's been here, I mean, he has just jumped right in with both feet. So we're really lucky to have him.
Great. Good. Well, I hope you find the work here interesting. We think it's important. And I hope you also find it interesting. Great. Well, good. I think we got that settled. Okay, council, it's almost 7:30. Let's take a 10-minute break and then we'll come back to it. Natalie, 10-minute break.
Thank you. Got it.
Can we take our seats and we'll get back to work? Great, okay. Thank you all. Okay, so our next item, fourth for the evening, is a discussion on proposed parking fees for Dillon, the Fields Park area and the Shriver parking lot. We have our parking director, John Crawford, here. John, would you like to start us off?
Thank you. I'm John Crawford, Mobility and Parking Director for the City of Manitou Springs. I appreciate you having me this evening. I wanted to discuss adjustments in rates based on the change in the Route 33 bus that's going to start service to the Dillon, and also the fact that the Dillon is going to be open with all of its services probably early next week. And that's the new bathroom facilities. The office is coming online. It's going to take us a minute to get up and running with all the technology side of it, but we should also be able to be in our building and start at least setting up our furniture in our offices next week. So this is in preparation of that. So with your permission, I'll just briefly go over the memo. I don't know if she's going to pull it up or not. But basically, as you know, we opened the Dillon Mobility Hub June 16th of 2025. We placed a small $5 flat rate fee. Are we good?
Sorry. Sorry, thanks, Denise.
We put a small $5 flat rate fee to encourage usage of that facility. And I'm sorry, I did not bring the total number with me right now, but I believe we're somewhere at 1,200 parking transactions there since we started. So it has gradually ramped up as we anticipated. And then, of course, once the shuttle service stops servicing directly Hiawatha and begins servicing the Dillon Mobility Hub, we'll see a big increase in the usage of that facility. Also, I think if you haven't seen our bathrooms, they're going to be really nice. They're going to be, I was talking to Denise today, I think they're going to be some of the nicest ones on the Front Range. I haven't seen other facilities like that. They're very, very nice. So with that, I wanted to propose an increase in the rates to the Dillon, and nothing that's not outside of what your policy is already. We have the Zone 2 rates, which is what you have at Hiawatha now. I'm simply saying initially, let's start with the Zone 2 rate at the Dillon Mobility Hub, and then we can get the data on the usage and go from there, just like you do with your quarterly reevaluation program now. So I'm not looking for any policy change. I just want to start with that Zone 2 rate and move from there. My recommendation for the 100 block of El Paso is twofold. One, because there is going to be a stop, the current bus stop that's there right before you get to the pickleball courts and everything right behind there. That is going to be a stop for the 33. And once people know that they can get on the 33 there, and if they are aware that there's close to 50 parking spots there that currently aren't being charged for, I think you're going to see all that fill up in the mornings and all through the days. I think it's going to limit access to people that want to use the park for the purpose of the park. And it will take away traffic from the Dillon initially. So I'm proposing to put the same fee structure in place in that 100 block. And I think with that, they'll tend to go to the Dillon because of the services first, and then fill that area up secondly when we need it for overflow. Also, combining those two together for the parking capacity will allow me to replicate what we're doing at Hiawatha when we close Hiawatha. That'll give me that same capacity back to service the incline and then naturally other visitors to downtown. The purpose of looking at adding Shriver Park is because we have seen a steady increase in Shriver Park being full. And Denise notices it because she's around at certain times on the weekends when I'm not. But she'll say, you know, John, the pool's closed and the lot's full, but nobody's at the park. And what we have noticed anecdotally is people parking at Shriver Park and getting on the shuttle and or using Pike Ride. I actually saw people charging at the charge station, and then they got on the Pike Ride bikes and toured around town. So that parking lot is being used to service other aspects of the city and not being necessarily reserved for or primarily used for the pool or access to Shriver Park. by putting a fee there, hopefully we're encouraging the people to go to the mobility hub and or just go on downtown to other parking and leave the parking for the park available. I know there's concerns about people paying to go to the pool and go to the fitness center. I understand that. And what our plan would be is to offer a validation system. There's a couple of different ways to do that. As you know, I'm looking at a complete study of our systems and see if I can improve those. But very commonly, there's just a QR code that could be available inside at the desk. So if you're going in to use the pool facilities, you have to check in anyway. You'll simply use that QR code to validate your license plate, so your parking's taken care of. There's also license plate entries that we could simply say that license plate is good to park there today because they came to the pool or they checked in at the pool, fitness facility. As far as the fact that people would pay to park there to access the park, the two primary parks in town, all that parking is paid parking around there. So it's actually more equitable that people would pay when they're accessing that park and also down at Fields Park. The small parking lot that's actually inside Fields, we would look to just put some sort of a time limit on that. I don't want to interfere with the mayor or my boss's pickleball routines and all, but I know that will naturally force some people into that area. So our thought was just to come up with perhaps a 2 or 3 hour time limit and just enforce that as needed to try to keep that available as no cost for the early morning people there, but also to keep the people out so they're not just taking that for free parking. We find cars down there a lot that are just using that park also to park their cars. And I don't know where there was a motorcycle there this morning. It was in the way of my striping project. It got ticketed. Last time I saw it, it was still there. So I don't know where the person was. They were not playing pickleball or any of those things or using the park. So I know I kind of ran through that a little bit, but that's basically my philosophy on doing this. I'm happy to answer questions about it. I just think it's the smart way to manage those parking assets.
Okay, right, Michelle?
John, thank you so much for the information that you have presented to us tonight. I have an issue with the 100 block of El Paso Boulevard being, that is a very busy park, especially with the pickleball courts, the baseball field, and people just in general using our free parks. So in the memo, it talks about incline users possibly parking on El Paso Boulevard. I really don't think so. The majority of those incline users are parking at Hiawatha. They want to get on that 6 a.m. shuttle and be on their way. When the Dillon first opened and I drive back into town and I'm like, oh my goodness, no one's using the mobility hub and all the things. And then as the information has gone out there that it's open and it's $5 and I've been seeing a lot more users, that are jumping on that shuttle and going straight to the incline, which is awesome. But I seriously doubt that the incline users will be using El Paso Boulevard. The other thing about it is, I get it. Colorado Springs charges for parking. The pickleball users at Bear Creek are not paying. That park is free, both in both parking lots. And I just really have a hard time, especially when you come back to us on September 16th and propose the, I'm sorry, I'm just so tired tonight. The parking where it's so much per hour for up to 3 hours. And then on the 4th hour, we charge the progressive parking. I really do not, I voted against that. I am not for progressive parking if you come back to us on the 16th and propose that. I am in favor of the parking for those that are not using our gym when it opens back up in January. I'm sorry, let me look on here. The parking validation system for users of the center. So I am for parking, paid parking at Shriver Park, and I am for parking, the proposed parking rates for the Dillon Mobility Hub, but I am not for paid parking at the 100 block of El Paso Boulevard. Thank you.
Thank you. Denise, please.
I just want to make, remember Hiawatha is closing and that highway or Route 33 is only going to be servicing the Dillon. So that will be, that's starting September 28th. That's the direction you gave. So Route 33 will be going to the Dillon directly, picking people up and going to the incline. So the Hiawatha will no longer be that option for the incliners at that point.
Thank you. Judith?
Thank you, Mayor. I respectfully disagree with Counselor Weatherholt. I think that people that come to any tourist town, especially frequently, they'll figure things out. They're opportunists. I mean, I remember I walk my dog a lot on the social trail, you know, that's now under construction for Creek Walk Phase 4, and I cut to El Paso and early in the morning. And historically, those incliners, before we had permitted parking there, they knew they could come in and park in the 400 block of El Paso. And I just talked to some, you know, people that got out of their car. They go, oh, we do that incline all the time, and we know it's free over here. They'll figure it out really quick. I have not been opposed to putting paid parking on El Paso for a long time, because as anybody who lives over in that area, as do I, we've had trouble with people with RVs and other large vehicles figuring that if they come late enough, they can just park there and stay the night. So I'm not opposed to that, because you're right, people will figure that out ultimately. What I am adamantly opposed to, and that word bold and underline that, adamantly opposed to, is the sentence you have in your memorandum of the approximate 40 spaces on El Paso are expected to act as overflow parking for Dillon Mobility Hub and for parking of oversized vehicles. I actually want signage on that 100 block of El Paso that prohibits commercial and oversized vehicles. You know, ironically, just on Monday, when I was driving to meet the people, the tree folks over here at Hiawatha Gardens to do that walk, there was not one, not two, but 3 commercial tour buses parked there. And, you know, that is a residential neighborhood. And all of that, all of those residences across from Fields Park are either single family or condos. And I don't know about you, but I would be so worried about a whole line of oversized commercial vehicles parking there, reducing my property value. I wouldn't be able to have any, you know, visual of the park. So I'm opposed to that. And I actually want to see signage there, but paid parking for automobiles, I'm not opposed to. So I'll support it under those conditions.
Sorry, just to clarify, so the large vehicles and RVs, that's really what you're
Well, I
opposed to?
mean,
Cars would be
I
okay?
consider an oversized vehicle to be a tour bus, an RV, a camper, you know, any kind of tour bus. I mean, is your definition different than mine?
No, and I'm not in disagreement. I want to get larger vehicles outside of downtown where it's very problematic. Now, if you are opposed and want me to look at an alternative, what I would have to do then is designate more space in the 400 block for the large vehicles and direct them there. And I'm not opposed to doing that and trying it and see how it impacts us. But I think what's going to happen is when the Creek Walk is done, that real estate is going to be even more valuable to us. And I think you're going to have individual cars and groups wanting to park near that access to the Creek Walk. But again, one thing to understand about parking, I think I have a pretty good handle on parking overall. So I think I can tell you what the trends are going to be. And my memo was not meant to say that we meant it for our overflow parking. What's going to happen is as soon as I fill the Dillon up, they're going to figure out that they can go back on El Paso 100 and catch the bus at that bus stop. So it's going to find itself as the backup parking. But also when I make recommendations, I fully believe that you have to put parking policies in place and then monitor the result and then make the necessary adjustments to continually improvement. It's not a once and done. I don't write it on granite tablets, and Moses hands it down to all of us. We go, oh, this is great. This will never change. My recommendation and what we do now is put them in the 400 block. So I
Oh,
would
El
have to,
Paso?
no, ma'am, on Manitou Avenue.
I see.
Yes.
The oversized vehicles.
Yes, that's where we try to encourage them to go. One thing to remember too, I'm going to have more and more problem parking large vehicles because the Hiawatha layout is not going to be conducive to a large vehicle. And by the way, our definition of an oversized vehicle is over 22 feet in length. So everything you mentioned definitely qualifies.
Well,
So I'm happy to,
we've got a
make that
residential
adjustment.
Neighborhood, and then we've got a park where children are playing and people are, it's a neighborhood. And I'm sure there isn't anybody on council that says, hey, park those RVs in my neighborhood. I'll take them. I don't think there's anybody on here who's going to say, wow, we need them here. I'm not saying, and it's that, not in my backyard thing, but that area of town where I live all summer long, we're already inundated all the time with tour buses coming up Becker's Lane all summer long, audible
Better.
trolleys, Adventures Out West. I mean, it's part of the blight of living over there. I mean, it's the good, the bad and the ugly, that's the ugly part. But if we have an addition of, the oversized vehicles now can park, that's really close to the Garden of the Gods. And I see that as, I don't want to see that as blighting our neighborhood with oversized vehicles.
I'm not going to argue that with you. I'm
So
fine, but just understand
Yeah.
I'll be pushing more of them on larger parts of Manitou Avenue, which is where we have to go now.
Okay.
But I'm not in disagreement with you. That's easy change.
Okay, great. Thank you, Michelle. And then I think Nancy.
Thank you. Yes, I do understand that we are a tourist town. The 400 block, how long is that going to take? How long is that project going to take for the parking?
The last estimate I had from Ben was it's approximately a 6-week project.
Okay. So Judith, I understand that the frustration of having large vehicles in your neighborhood. They're in downtown Manitou Springs. They're parking on the 400 block. There are blind spots on the 400 block of Manitou Avenue where we have families with their children, a stroller, a dog, trying to park, trying to make sure that that bus driver sees them as they cross the road where the crosswalk is. I understand we have a problem with parking. Yes, I agree with Judith about not pushing those vehicles out to El Paso, but to just have them, when I see them parked in front of the clock tower on a Saturday with 100 people coming out of there and them crossing the road when you have 2 pedestrian crosswalks on either side, it is a hot mess. So unless council says you cannot bring in whatever size vehicle to downtown Manitou Springs, and where does our downtown Manitou Springs start? Does it start where the library is to the west side where the loop is? Because it's just awful. Traffic is awful in our town. And it's going to always be like that. It doesn't matter. People, I'm going to say this. People are lazy. They do not want to park at the Dillon and take a shuttle and come and shop in the town and eat. They want to be as close as possible to wherever they're going to go. So I appreciate that we have the Dillon Mobility Hub. I'm super happy to see that we have the incliners using that lot. I understand that we are closing Hiawatha, but I do not agree with charging for parking on El Paso. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy, did you have a comment?
Yeah, just, I believe that RVs and campers are not allowed to be parked on city streets. So that would make it a different issue from other oversized vehicles. If memory serves me, we have an ordinance against that, but that would be something to check into because that would be dealt with differently then.
So we don't put them in downtown proper. That's why I move them out to the 300 and 400 block. We do cite them anywhere closer into town when they're the oversized vehicles. They're not prohibited from parking on those streets. There's a camping rule, so an RV can't camp overnight. Unfortunately, I don't enforce camping rules. Our friends in the police department have to help me with that one. But yeah, I think that's where the confusion is. And I understand her point about buses being downtown, but a lot of the tour buses you see, let me qualify that. There are tour buses that are coordinated through the Chamber of Commerce that we work with, and we block off spots for them to go and drop off people. That is not the subject of why I was here tonight to talk. However, I understand the concerns from certain groups of people, but also there's another group of people that are trying to promote those buses with us. I am happy to take that on. I am happy to work with y'all on that. I would love to get all large vehicles away from my boss's office. I don't want them past her office. I want them back this way. Somewhere, wherever that is, I'll find it. But I'm sorry, that's just a different topic than
Yeah.
tonight's.
Bottom line, John, as much as I hate charging, just continuing to charge and putting it out and out further, it seems inevitable that we're going to have to. And bottom line, I trust your opinions on these things because you are working it day in and day out and have the best view. And so that's my bottom line is I pretty much trust you, but I don't happily go into continuing to charge, but it just seems inevitable to me that we're going to have to. Thank you.
If I can add something, Mayor, and then I'll answer some more questions. I also forgot to bring up, the Black Canyon is scheduled to come online, and people are going to be wanting to park right there on El Paso. So it's going to be a bigger demand for that parking as well. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Julie?
Okay, you get 7 people, you get 7 opinions. I'm in favor of parking, of charging for parking.
4,000 in town. I get 4,000 opinions almost every day. Sorry.
Yeah, you ask 7 people, you get 7 different answers. I am in favor of charging for parking in El Paso. I also support Judith Chandler's comments about the size of vehicles to be parked there. I'd like to see, I didn't know that RVs and campers were prohibited from parking on the street. If that's true, I didn't know that.
It
But
might just be overnight, as John said.
oh, okay. I would like to see RVs and campers and tour buses and vehicles with trailers behind them, any oversized vehicle to be parked either at the Dillon or on the east end of Manitou Avenue, like east of Hiawatha parking lot. I don't want them in the downtown area. I think it's also really icky to put them on El Paso across from all of those lovely homes that enjoy currently being able to look over at the park instead of having to look at a bunch of huge buses or even some of those big vehicles that are hauled in every time we have these events in Memorial Park. And so that's my opinion, but I also need some help, some clarification on this zone 2 according to season thing. And you went a little too fast for my brain. So are you suggesting that the Dillon charge the same as Hiawatha once they're both open, or are we just, well, first of all, when does Hiawatha close down? Denise, do you know when that gets started?
We're planning to close it the very 1st of January. We may have to close it a little bit before that, but 1st of January right now is the plan.
And how long are we anticipating it remaining closed?
At least through the end of June.
Okay, so at least 6 months. Okay. So are you suggesting that the charge for the Dillon be the same as the charge for Hiawatha?
To start off, yes, I am.
Okay. And what's the rationale for that?
So it's going to be replacing the Hiawatha lot for the incline users because of the added service of having the bus go there is not going to go to Hiawatha. So, and that service is subsidized by the parking enterprise. So I'm trying to make sure we have the revenue to continue to have that service. And I think we need to have a higher rate than the $5. And to set a parking rate, you have to start with something and then monitor your occupancy and then go from there. And since, as you know, Hiawatha gets, full and overflows on a regular basis during the season, I think the rates that we have in place there are reasonable. And I think that's a good rate to start. And also again, we're going to have more structural benefits to that parking lot than we have at any other location. And so I think it'll be, I think people will be willing to pay more to park there now that all those facilities will be up and running and the services are there.
Okay, because so far I've been trained to believe or informed that the lots that are further away from downtown should generally be less expensive than the ones that are closer to downtown as an incentive. So once both lots are open as of June 2026, approximately, apparently, at that point, you're saying you think that Hiawatha should still be the same price as the Dillon?
No, I think we need to reevaluate as we get closer to Hiawatha being opened back up.
Okay, so this discussion is only between now and June of 2026 theoretically?
It's between now and whenever we get some observations to say we need to change what we're doing. So yeah, I don't think this is a permanent change. This is a place to start to see what the occupancy and demand is.
And I don't know what zone 2 year-round seasonable rate proposal means. So can you spell that out for me? What are we currently charging at Hiawatha, since that's what you're proposing we charge at the Dillon? And if there are different answers depending on the season, I'll take notes, but can you help me with that?
I'll just tell you right now. So during Monday through Friday, the first 2 hours is $1.75, and then it goes up
Wait, the first 2 hours is what?
$1.75 an hour,
Okay.
and then it goes up $2.25 an hour. And then what I would probably do instead of reading these off, but the progressive rate goes up from there.
So 25 an hour is after the first 3 hours, is that right?
It goes up to 25. So what I'll do is I'll email you out the rate sheet. I have a little clean rate sheet that just shows you what it is for each house.
Discussion tonight. So if I'm going to be making any recommendations tonight, it really helps me that you're willing to answer me. And is that the summer rate or the winter rate or the year-round rate?
So you currently do your rates by quarter. And so this is the rate that we have for the third quarter of the year. And Saturday and Sunday, it's
So what, September, October, what is the third quarter?
July, August, and September. That's your current, the way your
And what-
rates are set.
June, May, and April, May, and June.
I don't have all those in front of me and they change year to year.
Yeah, I want to say that those charges are on page 13 of 22, and they change every year per your progressive schedule. So we can't give you exactly, but we can show you, if you look at page 13, it shows exactly what those charges are by zone.
Page 13. Okay, give me a second. Oh, I see. Okay. Well, my sense is that we should definitely increase the rate at the Dillon, so I agree with you there. And whether or not I'm in favor of the progressive parking, that always seemed weird to me. I'm not sure. I'm a big fan of that. I do believe that we should be charging at Shriver, and I have seen that park be full. And I think it makes sense to validate parking for the pool patrons. I agree with you there. I also think, and I don't, the parking along El Paso Boulevard by Fields Park, excuse me, by the pickleball courts and all of that should be charged, but I think we should also charge further east of the skateboard park as well, where people park all along the road there once the lot gets full. And it seems to me that we should be charging something for that lot, maybe not 24 hours a day, but at certain times of the day, because that lot fills up every weekend. And I don't think it makes sense to have just free parking there. I don't know why that would be sacred, even though our city administrator likes it being free because she likes to play pickleball there. Maybe she should get a special pass. But I don't think that lot should be free, and I really don't want large vehicles at all along El Paso Boulevard, any part of that. I just think if we can fit them into the Dillon, and then we can fit them into the URA area, and we can, or the area at least east, as far as east of the Hiawatha that we can go. And if it gets full, then they can go home or go somewhere else, take a bus. I don't know. But I don't like seeing all these huge buses and huge oversized vehicles in these small residential areas.
Thank you. I would point out that the city administrator is a Manitou Springs resident, and she has 50 hours of free parking, just as any Manitou resident
So
would.
then she doesn't have to be upset if we charge for.
I think she wants to
I'd like
speak
to
to
make a
it.
correction. I'm not upset if you charge or don't charge. I don't play pickleball there very often, and that wasn't my idea. My idea was to protect the entire residence. So it wasn't about me, and I want to make that correction and
Yeah,
make sure it's very
Need to be
clear.
picking on you, Denise. I was trying to make a joke and it didn't work out very well. But yes, Mary, you're right. We all have 50 hours of free parking every year. And so far as I'm aware, no one's ever used all 50. And if we want, we can pass, pass a resolution or an ordinance that if you need to go beyond 50, we'll give you another 50. But I don't like that lot being free, and I don't like anywhere in El Paso being free. And as far as, which I know is a different subject, but I just want to comment that I appreciate Michelle's observation about how chaotic it is when we have these huge buses unloading right in front of the town clock. I don't think that's a good idea. I appreciate the chamber's point of view, but it's not as if those people will be prohibited from enjoying the town or the city if they're required to unload somewhere else east of there, like, in Hiawatha or anywhere along Manitou Ave east of there. So that's my point of view. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle?
I just want to go on record, according to our ordinance 10.12.015, oversized and recreational vehicle parking limitations. A, parking of oversized vehicles and trailers on public streets within the city limits is prohibited.
That's helpful. So in that case, if it's already prohibited, I'm referring then to other oversized vehicles like buses and big vehicles with trailers behind them and
Okay.
campers and things that aren't specifically identified in our code.
I guess a pragmatic question, if I was a tour operator or a bus driver coming into Manitou Springs and I was given a lot of hassle, I would go someplace else. And that'd be my concern for businesses here. I mean, we want to be hospitable. I think we want to make it easy for people to come here, have a good time and come back. And I guess my hope in having one of the things that I see the planning director doing is figuring out a way to be Mr. Hospitality. They say, where can I unload my people? And then where can I go park my bus? Something like that. To me, that seems like a doable solution. There's been talk about, okay, so we're trying to protect the 100 block of El Paso Boulevard in that little neighborhood. Well, there are other neighborhoods that have parking lots too. The 100 block of Canyon Avenue is a residential neighborhood. It's commercial, but there are people who live upstairs and in the area. The Schmishny lot, 100 or the 1100 block of Manitou Avenue, that's a residential neighborhood. If you walk across the street, and there's some households on the side. So to say that we are going to protect the 100 block of El Paso Boulevard because it's somehow special, I think the logic on that is a little flawed. I understand that we don't want to have huge vehicles parked in residential areas. We want to be able to move people. We want residents to get in and out easily. We want tourists to come and visit and have a good experience. So anyway, I just wanted to respond to a couple of things that came up here rather in the last few minutes. Sure, absolutely.
Follow up on that. So at the moment then, for example, couldn't we have tour buses directed to Old Man's Trail right in front of Hiawatha and let the tourists out there? And if they don't want to walk up the hill to the town clock, they can take the shuttle. Would that, I mean, I'm not suggesting we ban them from town or anything, but we see Mountain Metro letting people on and off there, and it doesn't seem to cause a big problem. The road is wide and there's a nice visible crosswalk there. It seems to me like there are solutions to where we can let these big buses pull over and let people out and have, 75 people pour out without them being smack dab in the middle of downtown. What do you
Yeah,
think about
well, no,
that
Yeah,
option?
yeah. Well, I think that's worth taking a look at. I think it maybe be worth, and maybe we already do something like this because I do see buses coming in and loading people, and then I see them parked down, about the 300 block of Manitou Avenue. But yeah, if we could get the people close to where they want to be, and I mean, yeah, if they have to get on and off a bus, that's one little encumbrance. Maybe it's not that bad, but I think the simplest thing is to take them directly to wherever downtown, drop them off, get the bus out of the way, and then at some point the bus comes back or they're told to rendezvous down at the Hiawatha Gardens. I think I can envision several options. I don't know what would work best, and I think probably, John, you've got better insights into that, and I suspect you'd want to experiment with it anyway. Maybe you can respond to that.
Yeah, so currently we generally set up 3 bus stops for them when we are working with the chamber, and one is in front of the 7-minute spring. And then we have one generally at the clock tower, roughly somewhere in the 700 block. And then we have one at 900 or somewhere a little bit further down. And they'll do a progression of dropping off. And then, if they're at 7 minutes, sometimes they just go up, look at the spring and get back on the bus. But we encourage all the buses downtown now, when we find them anywhere, to go to the 300 and the 400 block. And we have seen more compliance with that. And as we have had more communication with them, they're doing it more automatically now. But I certainly agree with you. There are a lot of challenges with those large buses. A lot of the large buses also travel all the way through and go up to Ruxton to the COG. Another area of challenges and opportunities for me to work on. And I'm happy to tackle this more and come up with more options, but I'm not in disagreement with saying not park on El Paso at this point, and I'm not opposed to finding other places for them, but we only have so much real estate.
Right, thank you.
No, I wanted to see if I could address one other thing you said.
Hey,
before
Julie, go
we
ahead, and then,
To a new topic.
okay, yeah.
I'm not suggesting that oversized vehicles be prohibited anywhere that there's a residence across the street, but since it's right in front of a park, that's such a beautiful park. I just hate for it to get so commercialized that you have these huge buses parked along there with, little kids and dogs and that kind of thing. Whereas Manitou Ave is, more urban, and I think it's less upsetting to see a large vehicle on the avenue east of Hiawatha parking lot than it is right in front of our beautiful park. So to me, that's a distinction. You're raising your eyebrows. You don't agree with me?
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was distracted. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Say it again, please.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to know what you think. I didn't mean to suggest that oversized vehicles should be prohibited from any street where there's a residence across the street. Because, you were making the distinction about on Manitou Avenue, there are some residents there east of Hiawatha parking lot, but right in front of a park, I just hate to see those huge vehicles right alongside such a beautiful park. I think it makes it look more ugly. and less inviting and less safe. So that was a distinction I wanted to make, because I think when I was speaking earlier, I just talked about oversized vehicles in a residential neighborhood, and that's an overstatement. I'm just talking about along the edge of a park is where I don't want to see them. And so in front of the baseball field or in front of the pickleball courts, I just hate to see along those stretches to see, you know, huge vehicles parked there for the day. And that's why I thought they would look better, be better up on Manitou Avenue.
Okay, thank you. Yep. Yeah, I was going to say, let's go around. So I've had several counselors have given me their thoughts on what it should be. John, what's your take?
I guess in listening to all this, my comment is, I think that I'm willing to look at the Shriver and the El Paso Boulevard for metered parking, given the fact that Manitou residents can sign up for parking things. I like Mr. Crawford's idea in which the pool users that would use a pool would be able to have some kind of a scheme in which they could use the pool and then not have to pay for the parking. I like that. I like that idea. I'm in total agreement with saying that if we ever reach the point where somebody used all 50 hours of Manitou free parking, that we would pop it up by another 25 hours a year or whatever. Or for that person, add another 50 hours, throw it in there and get it done. That if you have that kind of need. My observation is somebody who does get around town quite a bit. Seems like most of the tour buses are parking down on Manitou Avenue, just east of the chamber. Okay, I think we have pretty good compliance with that. Seems like the occasional tour bus that pulls up at the town clock tends to kind of disembark their passengers, and then I don't know where they move to or where they go, but it seems like they're not allowed to stay there because that's a yellow zone. Okay. It used to be that those buses would just camp there. Okay. And I think we kind of started to kind of clamp down on that and say that you couldn't just park there the whole time. So I think overall I'm in favor of, John, all of your proposals. I think they're a good try. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Natalie, what are your thoughts?
Sure. I am also, I understand why these recommendations were made and I'm comfortable supporting them. Again, with that idea that it's a try and we'll see how it goes. I'm also interested in when it becomes up for conversation, increasing the residential parking hours, those 50 hours, increasing that as needed. Similarly with the pool, again, supporting pool users, I think is really important as well. And then also just looking forward to ongoing ideas and conversations around managing oversized vehicles in the community. I look forward to those ideas as we continue these discussions also.
Okay, all right, thank you, Natalie.
And just, I'm probably going to jump off this call soon. I've got a long day tomorrow, so.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, and our sympathies are with you. We have our condolences. Thank you. Okay, we appreciate those comments, Natalie. We'll see you next week. Thanks. Okay, and Judith, to go back, you had talked about not wanting big vehicles, RVs on El Paso. I think you said you were okay with cars. Did I get that right?
Yeah, here's what I support. First of all, I support you, John. I think you're doing a phenomenal job. And I don't know if you hear that enough from us, but I know that you could be home having dinner with your wife and you're here and you're doing a great job. And I support your pilot. I love that you and I both think that pretty much everything's a pilot. Because
Could you just answer the question?
yeah, well, Mayor, you've had an opportunity to wax sympathetic on some things, and I would like to say that I would like to have a chance to respond to some of those things. So I would like my turn. And if the rest of council is okay with that, I would like to proceed.
I can hear it again and again, so go ahead and talk.
So Counselor Weatherholt made a really interesting observation about people are lazy. What I think people want is a seamless experience, right? To me, they'll wait at Dillon as long as when they park their car and they have a reasonable parking, there's a bus coming in a reasonable amount of time. Okay, so as long as we have that nailed down, I absolutely trust you and support you with this pilot program that I understand is going to basically be from now through about June. I see this as a tremendous opportunity. And the reason I see this as a tremendous opportunity with Hiawatha closing, it's we have an opportunity to change behavior. Because what we're saying to people that are coming in, you can't park at Hiawatha. It's under construction. This is where you're going to get to park. And over time, I think we will get people parking more on the East End. I have no problem doing paid parking for El Paso. I've been suggesting it for a while now. I think that is an underutilized place, the 100 block of El Paso, especially with Black Canyon open space. That is where people are going to park. And I'm okay with that. What I oppose is the large buses. And I think that's sounds like there's a discussion for another day. And if it comes down to that, I want signage to that effect. I'm conflicted about paid parking in the little parking lot by the skate bowl. I don't know about that. And I don't know if that's included in this discussion, but I do have quite a few residents that are older and they like to walk on the creek walk, but they can't, they drive there and they park there. So maybe again, I support the 50 hours of free parking increase. So maybe that would cover it, but no, I say go for it. And I'll be, I'll be supporting you and looking at a solution for the oversized vehicles. What I want to say is I was elected by the people. And while we live in a tourist town, that's who I have to answer to. I work for them. I'm their employee. So at the end of the day, yeah, we are who they call when a tour bus is parking in front of their house, their $1 million condo on 100 block of El Paso. So yes, thank you. That's all I've got, Mayor.
Thank you. All right. Well, personally, I'm not crazy about charging for parking in the city parks, the Schriever area and Fields Park. But the residents can get 50 hours, so there's some forgiveness there. Clearly, council is in favor of approving your request, John, and I have a lot of faith in you, and I think you need some wiggle room to get this worked out. I trust you to figure out where to put the buses. It seems like you've got it under control pretty much. I mean, we get choked up sometimes, but then it could be a lot worse. And it's, I frequently see big buses parked down, as we say, east of the Chamber of Commerce. It seems like it's being managed. So I think the direction from council is that we're in favor of your proposal. So unless council has a different opinion. Okay. The direction from council is to approve Mr. Crawford's request. Thank you, John. Michelle, yeah, go ahead.
This will be real quick. I'm not saying people are lazy. People are convenient. They like convenience. I've lived in downtown Manitou Springs for 5 years. So if we're going to train people, residents, tourists, to park further east, I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime, but I really appreciate your effort. Thank you. And I want to add to that laziness. I'm not saying they're lazy, but we have like free delivery for groceries and pick up your groceries. Don't even go. I mean, all the things. Have stuff delivered to your door. Don't even go outside and commune with nature or your neighbors. That's the kind of laziness I'm talking about, which includes parking. They don't want to walk to their destination. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Council, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem's but thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I'll start to work and move forward with these plans. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, last agenda item tonight is
Mayor, may I add just one comment?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Because this came up. I will say, Denise allows me to work very independently. So all rate recommendations and parking recommendations are literally mine. She just says, hey, will you look at this? And then I don't ever hear back from her. So I just want to make sure everybody knows she doesn't put any pressure on me for these recommendations. They are solely mine. And then you get to decide. So don't jump on her about my recommendations.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Okay, last item, council consideration and potential position on county-approved electronic billboard at Highway 24 and Ridge Road. And council, we all got an email from Larry Barrett. I think it was on Tuesday, maybe it was Monday. I heard about it Monday from another source. But anyway, Mr. Barrett's here. He could explain this to us a little bit. But I don't know if you've had. There were some things in the council packet. It talks about the billboard request from Lamar Advertising, and it was approved by the requests for two signs. One would be in neither of these are in Manitou. Excuse me. They're both in El Paso County. One would be at Ridge Road and Highway 24. That would affect Manitou more. There'd be another billboard. It's a separate request to be up in Cascade. The El Paso County Commissioners will be looking at this at their meeting at 9 o'clock this coming Thursday. So it is within their jurisdiction. It was the first I'd heard about it was Monday. The county hadn't reached out to us. I guess I wouldn't expect that. I guess what I'd like to do is give Larry a chance to come up, and he's more familiar with this than anyone else. If he could brief us on this, and then we'll just quickly take the temperature of council and see if council has an interest in pursuing this. Larry? Oh, Larry, oh yeah, press the button, the green will come. And now, I'm sorry, again, your name and your address, sir, and if you could speak about 3 inches away from the mic, that seems to work pretty well.
Are we on? Is that working? Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to spend a few minutes here. I'm Larry Barrett. I live in 2818 Tenderfoot Hill Drive, which is in Colorado Springs. I'm the board member for an organization called Scenic Colorado. Scenic Colorado is a mission to preserve and enhance the visual environment and the aesthetic character of community and countrysides of Colorado. Been involved with Scenic America and Scenic Colorado for 25, 30 years. Billboard is one of our issues. Another issue is just trash pickup. By coincidence, Scenic Colorado has adopted a mile of highway here right through Manitou Springs. So our mile starts at where Manitou Avenue goes under the bridge under US 24 down to Red Rock Canyon open space. So the agreement we have with CDOT is to police that area and recover trash at least 4 or 5 times during the course of the year. So I was paying attention driving here this evening and says, well, it's maybe about time we get out and do a little trash pickup. But the big event from Scenic Colorado's perspective is this meeting on Thursday with the El Paso County Commissioners. And what's happening there at 9 o'clock is they are considering a proposal from Lamar Advertising. I think you all know who Lamar is. That has proposed 2 billboard applications for electronic billboards. And I think you're familiar with electronic billboards because there are some in the area. They're very bright. They change faces every 4 to 6 seconds. So in the course of a minute, they may go through 6, 7 different faces. And it's all very bright and very distracting, at least we think. So Scenic Colorado has put together comments on this, and I think that's what I sent to the mayor, and then he sent out to everybody. So hopefully people have seen that. I've got a revision of that, which I can leave with you, but it's essentially 90% of my revision is drawn on that original one. I like to point out that the purpose for billboards in the county code. It reads as follows: to limit the impact of billboards on the community, to improve the appearance of entryways into the community, such as Interstate 25 and Highway 24, to ensure compatibility between billboards and adjacent land uses, especially residential uses, to limit the amount of sign clutter, to promote transportation safety, and to provide for the visual enjoyment of the community we serve. So from our perspective, Scenic Colorado is very heavily related to that visual component. It does go on to say, under the purpose for the billboard code, billboards are a necessary and appropriate advertising medium. They are acceptable and viable for locations within a community. So I do give credit for the purpose. Recognizes that billboards have a role. In El Paso County, Lamar has 67 billboards that the county has jurisdiction over. And of those 67, 11 are electronic. They're proposing 2 more electronic billboards. One of them is right across from Red Rock Canyon open space. And the second one is up here by Cascade, where the Pikes Peak Highway splits off from US 24. And the focus, I think, for you all would be on the one opposite Red Rocks Canyon. We think that billboards diminish highway safety, and in particular, several studies have been done, and here are some of the results I think that are very interesting. Billboards distract drivers' eyes off the road, is an estimated to cause 23% of all crashes. Eyes are drawn to an object of different illuminance regardless of any interest in irrelevant stimulus. So you can be driving along and you see something happening off to the side, and it could be the billboard changing its face, and the eyes will go there. Distractions of 2 seconds or longer increase the likelihood of crash by 3.7 times, based upon a study done by Virginia Tech. And finally, in summary, it sort of says digital advertising distracts drivers away from the road for extended, demonstrably safe periods of time. And this came from a report of the National Cooperative Highway Research Program. Another reason to question billboards is they do have an impact on property values. So a study was done in Philadelphia. Homes closest to the billboards had less property value than those that are further away. In terms of public opinion, I think the public's on our side in a sense, Scenic Colorado. Various public surveys over time have shown that in Florida, 90% of the respondents opposed billboards, 90%. Houston was 81%, Missouri 78%, Rhode Island 67%, and Colorado is 80%. So billboards are eyesores. They're obscene and they cause distractions. So it's what, in a sense, you call visual pollution. We worry about air pollution and water pollution. Well, this is visual pollution. U.S. Highway is a scenic corridor. It's recognized that in the code, and we should try to keep it that way. Whereas these electronic billboards would diminish the scenic aspects of that. Red Rock Canyon open space is part of the scenic corridor, and the billboard would be very distracting for those people. We think it's good for tourism and for businesses to restrict billboards. Many counties in Colorado prohibit new billboards, including electronics. And this includes our neighbor here, Teller County, includes to the north of us, Denver, Jefferson, Boulder, Larimer, Clear Creek, Summit, and I'm forgetting Wells County. Municipalities that have banned electronic billboards include Colorado Springs. Manitou Springs, to my understanding, has banned electronic billboards. Fort Collins, Boulder, Greeley, Estes Park, etc. So in summary, we believe that billboards do not meet the criteria that are in the Planning Commission's checklist. Electronic billboards will not be in harmony with the character of the community. Electronic billboards will create traffic hazards. Electronic billboards will cause light pollution. Electronic billboards will be detrimental to public health, safety, and welfare of the present and future residents of El Paso County. So our recommendation on Thursday to the planning commission or to the commissioners themselves is to deny the applications for electronic billboards. Preserve America the Beautiful. So with that, I'll stop. I may have gone a little bit over.
Okay, great.
But be happy to entertain questions and comments. And a colleague is here from Friends of Red Rock Canyon Open Space, and I think you'd be good to hear from David as well.
Okay, thank you. First, maybe I'll go around the table, see if council is interested in taking a position on this or supporting it. Judith?
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's imperative that we take a position against both of these billboards, but particularly the Ridge Road one. I get to use adamantly twice in one night. I am adamantly opposed to it. We didn't even really touch on the harm to wildlife migration and birds. I mean, it's just horrendous. So no, I really believe that council, hopefully we're all on board to take a very strong stand against this billboard.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy?
Yeah, you've done a very good job of outlining all the reasons that this is a bad idea, all of which I agree with. I do have one question, that is there any pro for putting that up there? I tried to find something that I always like, as you may have noticed listening tonight, I always like to know what the pros and cons are. And I know that you would rather not probably address any pros, but to your knowledge, are there any reasons that we might want to
I think
support?
the industry would respond by saying, well, providing information to travelers and
But Lamar,
whatever.
and I would think that Lamar only does commercial. I mean, it's the one that's currently up there is just an advertisement. There's no information other than as a commercial advertisement, correct?
I would agree with you.
Okay, so bottom line is then if there's no pros at all and lots of reasons not to support, I do not support. And I did also want to know if there's any council member who's available to go to the county commissioners meeting on Thursday to present this.
Yeah,
That does make a difference.
Yeah, that's a good point. I am going to be out of town. It's been planned for some time. Natalie is out of town. Nancy, I was wondering if you'd be available, or, I mean, certainly anyone else on council, the more the merrier.
I can look. I currently don't think I'm available, but I will see if I am.
Okay,
And yeah, if I could have the letter, that would be great.
okay, we'll discuss that too. Judith, you'll be available at the meetings at 9 o'clock Thursday morning at Centennial Hall, 200 South Cascade.
My only concern is I'll have a 4-year-old grandson that day. And so I don't, I mean, it's not that I can't go, it's that would be, but I certainly support the sample letter that you signed in the packet, that include all of council's names on that letter. But I'll see what I can do. I'm a maybe.
I understand it, and maybe that's a good answer. It's an acceptable answer. Okay, thank you. John?
Well, right after, John, you sent your email, I kind of got to work and sent about 500 emails to people that I knew and asked them to sign a petition against it. And as of right now, I have 153 people who have signed against it. And 65% are from Manitou, 18% are from Colorado Springs, and 12% are from Green Mountain Falls and Cascade. So I'm willing to go on Thursday and present the petition.
That would be excellent. That would be a great, that'd do a lot for the cause here. Great. Good work. How many signatures altogether?
I'm looking at them rolling in. It's up to 153.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. And I could see where that might increase in the meantime. Good. Okay. Michelle?
Yes, I'm against the billboard. Unfortunately, due to my work schedule, I will not be able to make that 9 o'clock meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we understand. Okay. And Julie?
I'm also against the billboard. I already sent an email to the county commissioners expressing my opposition, and I plan on being present and speaking at that meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And if it's okay, Mayor, I would like to inform the commission that our mayor and our mayor pro tem are both unable to attend because they're out of town. Otherwise, likely they would both be there in person because we consider this of the utmost importance.
Yes, thank you. And I do anticipate seeing 3 of the county commissioners tomorrow at a PPACG meeting. I will be here for that. So that I will try to make that point. And it's
Did
my
you
wife's.
email? Oh, you should email.
Well,
There's
I-
there's a link to the email that was provided to us. And I would
yeah.
like to suggest, since you're the mayor, that you indicate your opposition to this.
Right now, you may have noticed in the council packet, I put together the draft of a letter opposing it. If you would like, I could
I just
put
would email and the letter, but yeah, we can all certainly sign the letter. I
Well-
don't know if it's something that's printed that we could sign or if it's how that letter would be conveyed exactly. Do you have any?
It's not
Thoughts?
printed out right now. I think it has, in order to be included in the commissioner's packet, I think they would have to have it by 9 o'clock, physical copy of it by
Yeah,
9
yeah,
o'clock
but I'm
tomorrow.
not totally aware of the rules, but I think the correspondence has to arrive by close of business this evening or at least by 9 o'clock tomorrow, and will be included in the education package. Otherwise, I think if a letter comes in after that, but prior to the meeting, they'll make copies and hand out to the commissioners. at the
Kind of
meeting.
like our
I'm not-
packet.
I'm not
Yeah.
positive
Yeah.
about that, but I think
Yeah,
that's.
I
the way it
mean,
works.
and again, I anticipate seeing 3 of them in the morning, so I can hand them the letter. While I can get it printed out in the meantime. That would still that'd leave 2 commissioners that
Well, anything
I'd
you
have
do
to
would be helpful.
provide it. Beg your pardon?
Anything you could do would be
Yeah.
helpful.
Well, okay, so if council's okay with that, I'll go ahead and.
Well, what if,
do that.
Mayor, what if you go ahead and print out the letter that you drafted and indicate in there that council has unanimously supported it, although we don't necessarily have the opportunity of Natalie weighing in. So I'm not sure how you'd handle that piece of it. You could just simply indicate that, she was absent for this portion of the meeting. And that way, even though it's not signed, if you yourself say on behalf of city council, we are in opposition, and you could send that in tomorrow morning, I think that would be great. I believe I read that their packet is sent out, or they have to have everything in their packet within 24 hours. And if it doesn't make the time cut, then you can still present it, as the gentleman here has indicated, by handing it, a copy of it to each of the 5 commissioners.
I think
Right.
that's true.
Okay.
That'd
Yeah.
be great, Mayor, 'cause you're
Okay.
the mayor.
Yeah, and the letter starts off, the Manitou Springs City Council wishes to express its concern, so that's how it's worded, yeah. So, okay, if that's okay, I'll go ahead and get that together later tonight. Okay, so that would be our position. John, that's great that you've got all those individuals. I forwarded the information that I sent it to all of you to about 40 or 45 Manitou residents, people I thought might be interested, and I got positive feedback from half a dozen or so. And they made the effort to reach back, so that's a good sign. And it was kind of interesting. Some of them, they were from very much different walks of life, but they were completely aligned on the aesthetic issue. You had kind of a hippie and kind of a retired conservative individual, and they were ready to join arms. And okay, so that would be the plan. Well, if I was going to,
Know where I read this, but recently I read that El Paso County has more accidents per capita or per hour. I don't know. There was something in the news about how El Paso County has more car crashes than almost anywhere else in the state. And I don't know if I didn't save that. It was just, in my news feed somewhere. But if anybody happens to know where that came from, it might be worth mentioning that we already have a pretty bad track record of car crashes, and we don't want to increase the number of injuries and fatalities with yet more distraction. But that would just be icing on the cake.
okay, great. Well, if it's okay with council, then I'll go ahead and get that letter to the county commissioners. John, you'll go down there to present. And Julie, I guess your intent is to be there also. Judith, if, yeah, it's a maybe, yeah, but I mean, okay, and Nancy, you're a maybe, but maybe, okay, so, all right.
Thank you. Appreciate your support and keep our fingers crossed.
Okay, great, thank you.
And thank you for waiting so late in the night to address us. I'm sorry that you were last on the list on the agenda.
Well, you're showing good fortitude yourself, so.
This was sort of a pop-up issue. And I should also recognize Dave Valier, who's representing. Dave, if you've got. I'm sorry, Dave, I need you to.
Do it at the bottom here. I hope I'm speaking up. I'm David Valier and 17 Escondido Valley.
We're on TV.
Thank you. If we're on TV, David Valier. It's with Teresa Valier right there underneath 17 Escondido Valley. The bottom has the email address. You can make a comment, but you gotta make that comment before 9 a.m. tomorrow to be in that packet right there. So I'm happy to see.
Okay.
I'm happy to see what John has done. I'm happy to see what Larry's done. What John Graham has done as well, both of the Johns here. I'm real happy to hear that you made a comment already. I was looking at the comments today online and I noticed a lot of people. I had actually helped with graphic for Red Rock Canyon. Red Rock Canyon is where I learned about this, and that's why I have worked with Larry many times over the years picking up trash.
Picking up, he hasn't it?
I've seen you.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
And I'll reinforce what you're saying about animal impacts. David has that in his comments, I think, that.
But one time picking up garbage, saw at least.
Okay, Dave, you're not speaking on the mic, okay, so we need to come up and share the mic.
Trash on Highway 24. I saw a dozen deer carcasses, literally, and besides all the other animals. I mean, I can tell you what I think is a bear, cubs and things like that. It's sad situation, but that's another issue for Red Rock Canyon. Animals need water. Fountain Creek is available. I don't suggest putting up an animal fence yet until we take care of the pond issue up there. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you.
If I may, I've got a revision to my original statement.
Okay, yeah, if you'd like to pass them out, that'd be fine. Okay. Thanks, Larry. Okay. All right, so that wraps the evening up fairly well. Council correspondence, a couple of things. We do not anticipate needing to have a work session on September the 23rd. September the 30th is a fifth Tuesday. We normally wouldn't meet on that night either. So the last two Tuesdays, we don't expect to have meetings, so you can plan accordingly. We do expect to have a special meeting on September the 29th, and that would be to approve the audit. And that's the only thing which we're on a deadline with the state. Has to be done by I believe it has to be filed to the state by the 30th of September. So it would look like we could do a quick Zoom meeting. It would probably take, the only agenda item would be the audit approval. Historically, that's been done pretty quickly. So I would ask you to make allowance for a meeting at 6 o'clock on September the 29th, a Zoom meeting, and then you can count on taking the 23rd and the 30th off. Okay, see, that's all I've got. Anybody else? Nancy? 6 p.m. Yeah, usual time. But that's a Monday night, which is unusual, and this is all to accommodate staying on the good side of the state. Nancy?
Yeah, on that note, I will not be here on the 29th. I had assumed that we would be meeting on the 23rd, so I made my reservations for the 24th. Two things. I went to the Housing Advisory Board meeting last night, and they are continuing to work on the ADU ordinance and providing a lot of input to the Planning Commission. And the Planning Commission will be looking at ADUs again tomorrow night. I also went to the URA meeting last week, and they are reworking the facade improvement grant policy. So expect some changes with that in the future. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Judith?
Yeah, Sally Fitzgerald just asked me to put in an extra plug for the Day of Friendship at Soda Springs Park tomorrow, the 10th, it starts at 4:30 and it lasts until 8 o'clock. It is not a potluck. It is a bring your own picnic, bring your own blanket, bring your own chairs, whatever you want. And hopefully we'll see a lot of you tomorrow afternoon. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anything over here? Side note? All right, city administrators report.
Yeah, the only thing I want to mention is we're hoping to have that done on September 29th. There is a chance that we won't have it completed. We have to get everything to our auditors by a certain date, and then they'll let us know if they can get it completed. So that's our goal, but I just want to put out a realistic expectation that it may be delayed from September 29th.
Okay, thank you.
That happens, if it's delayed, then we'll just get a postcard from the state saying that it's delayed. The mayor will get it, I'll get it. We don't get penalized. We do need to get it done, but due to all the demands and everything that has occurred, we're a little behind this year. So we'll do our best, and Becca is working long hours to try to make it happen.
Okay. Anything else? If not, we're adjourned. Thank you all.